Good morning, everybody, and welcome to InsureTalk11, the birthday edition. My name is Nontutsoko Mhlungu, and I will be your session host for today. Now, today marks exactly 1 year and a day since the inception of InsureTalk. On the 14th of April 2020, InsureTalk was officially launched. And what an incredible journey it has been. A huge thank you to the insurance industry at large, and of course to all of you, our attendees at home, for your continued support. We truly do appreciate it. And now, in celebration of our first birthday, we ran a competition where we gave all of you an opportunity to send messages to us wishing us a happy birthday. If you did do this, then know that you are in the running to win your share of 5,000 Rand. That's right, this is our gift to you. So do make sure that you stay on till the end of the session, because you could be one of those 5 lucky winners. All right, so on to the business of the day now. This is what our agenda looks like and what you can look forward to. An exciting lineup as always. Our theme today centered very much around broking in a digital world. So you can look forward to some of the insights that will be shared by our speakers here today. Let me take this opportunity now to thank and acknowledge our event partners. Santam, of course, is our headline partner today. So a huge thank you to you, Santam, for your continued support over the year. Our other event partners include CIB, A Cover Magazine is our media partner, as well as IISA, who assisted with accreditation of today's session. Speaking of which, today's session has been accredited for 2.5 CPD hours, as you know, so that is something for you to look forward to. I know that that deadline, that CPD deadline, is getting closer and closer, so do take advantage of these sessions and bag those CPD points. All right, so let us now head on over to the business of the day. I'm going to introduce our first speaker for today. Her name is Alicia Naransamy. She is the underwriting head in the digital distributions division at SHA. She is going to be talking to us today about broking in a digital world and making specific reference to SHA's one-of-a-kind pocket underwriter platform, which really empowers brokers to generate their own quotes and policies within minutes, among other things. But I won't elaborate too much. Alicia will share more on this. So without any further ado, it is over to you, Alicia Naransamy.
Thank you, Noni, and that is an interesting lineup, if I should say so myself. With regards to broking in a digital world, I myself I'm really looking forward to Michael Anderson's talk, specifically having read the book myself, Leading in the Next Normal. And a statement that really resonated with me, having read the book myself, is that technology is not a tool. It really is a platform. I hope you guys can now see my screen. And this in detail, Michael Anderson will probably allude to it, but in my few years of heading up a very successful digital distribution and division team, we embraced this concept. And, we were able to, via this platform, take our business from just in the first year, reaching 500,000 to 5 years later, reaching 42 million in just the space of 5 years. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh gosh, here goes another millennial talking about how I need to transform my business to stay alive. And you would be right about me being a millennial, that is. But in my decade of insurance, and yes, it has been that long. Yes, it was also legal, in case some of you were wondering, for me to start working back then. What I have seen is that with every new insurance trend, there's a strong call to action for brokers to quickly transform their business to stay relevant and remain competitive. And I can imagine that that must be exceptionally difficult in this time. But today, brokers, my call to action for you is just that. Be the broker, not the CIO, not the CTO, not some tech specialist. There's a special place for you in this insurance ecosystem, an ecosystem that I'm sure you would agree is much more collaborative. Therefore, the key is that you discover how to play in this digital habitat. And how we do that is really by understanding, what do our clients want? Now, they say the first step to digitally transforming your business is understanding this, right? Understanding what your clients want, hearing what they say, their needs, etc. And bear in mind the famous quote by Henry Ford. Some of you may know it. It basically goes something like this. If he had to ask his clients what they would want, They would have said back then, faster horses. Now, to save you from receiving that feedback, we've taken the liberty of surveying 944 participants to really unpack what clients are saying about conducting business in this next normal. Now, 52% of brokers indicated that their clients would be happy to continue to meet on virtual platforms post the pandemic, but we suspect that this will be largely driven by consumer or customer behavior in those specific sectors. 77% of businesses will continue to work from home post pandemic. However, in our general business survey, just under 20% of the respondents said that they would not be looking to continue working remotely. Now, this pool of business owners are more than likely based in sort of the service or manufacturing sector where remote working may not be, a general option. Interestingly enough, almost 84% of businesses have digitalized their business as a result of this pandemic. So it's safe to say that the pandemic really accelerated the technological development across all the sectors. But guys, what does this really mean for you? What does this really mean for the broker in this digital ecosystem? For brokers, the global stats indicate that brokers can increase their revenue by 37% just by offering a digital solution of sorts. And if 52% of clients from our earlier stats that we know, 52% are happy to meet online, then this really makes my next statement a bit more palatable for you. There's a huge revenue and growth opportunity that you could be taking advantage of by making those simple strides to digitally transform the way you do business. At the preamble of my talk, I positioned that very bold statement by Michael Anderson that technology is not the tool, but it is a platform. And I believe that it is the enabler. Most of you would have probably quickly went to Google to debunk that statement. You can also check out Harvard Business Review on interesting stats thereof. But hear me out for a second. You don't need to go and change your whole operating model. That's not what I mean by say, make the small changes. You simply need to, on one hand, just really understand your business strategy. And on the other, partner with insurers that you can leverage off of, allowing them to do the heavy lifting. That's what I call using tech smartly. Now, speaking to this point of partnering with the insurers, some insurers have really identified huge opportunities where they can generate value for brokers using online platforms. Seeking alliances with these digital portals allows you to offer online services to your clients, which results in better service, but at the same time, reduce the cost for you to become more efficient. Now, let's look at some of the digital pillars here that support my argument. Firstly, you need to understand your client base and segment that base, making it more penetratable for future products. Why am I saying this? Because we understand that customers seek personalized products. Secondly, affair yourselves with digital platforms that exist in and around the insurance industry and in the market that are readily available for you. Why? Because we understand that clients want to engage online, and our stats indicate that. And lastly, scale and leverage. It's understood that by using these platforms with clients online and connecting via MS Teams and Zooms and the likes, by just sharing your screen, it creates that trust and openness. And we know that clients want transparency, right? Especially in the insurance industry. From this, our brokers can have strong growth and efficiency, attract the talent to the business, and most importantly, drive better customer satisfaction, helping you build even more trust. Now, technology helps you improve great service and advice that the brokers provides. Hear me out. It does not replace it. So in case you're wondering, guys, why I can confidently sit here and say these things and share these insights with you, it's because we have really taken a digital journey of our own. So it really would be a miss if I don't share the insights and the information, which could basically support the strategies and help you better engage with your client, right? So I'm not sure of how many of you have probably heard of the concept of an innovation pipeline, but in short, it's like a systematic approach that's used to generate sort of a steady flow of actionable items or ideas at a time like this when change is accelerating. For those that don't know, 2015 was a significant year in the tech industry. I mean, we witnessed the launch of Apple's first wristwatch to Tesla's almost driverless car. But these global events not only captured the attention of the masses, what it also did here was help spur big changes in the advancement of new technologies. Equally so, and bringing it back home to SHA in 2015, we launched our first digital solution, the Pocket Underwriter, which broke some mental models, if I may be so brave to say so, but it really paved the way for digital transformation. Now, a few short insights of what brokers can do on the platform and how they can quote. The covers you'll find are really tailored towards the SME in our world, which is why when we began launching, we launched with public liability in and around 2015, and we scaled it up very quickly in 2017 to open it up to the brokers, allowing them to quote online. Just mid 2019, we opened it up to allow professional indemnity, including a host of other extensions. And just in case you're wondering, our public liability cover, as mentioned, includes a wide range of extensions, about 28 or so to be exact, which caters for SMEs with a turnover below 20 million Rand, and a limit of indemnity that they can go up to is 25 million Rand. What we've also done here with PI is allow the brokers to quote on the platform, and it's relatively easy for them to remember because it's really, very clear cut. We offer 10 million Rand limit of indemnity for entities who have a fee income below 10 million Rand. And here we really try to cater for a wide range of professions, from your architects to your attorneys, your engineers, the loss adjusters. We even catered for the accountants here. So additionally, and more insights from our digital journey as well, we saw the recent spike in cyber events and we deemed it necessary to sort of meet the market with an end-to-end solution for first and third party, but we really wanted to extend beyond that, right? Especially for the SMEs. So we actually wanted an insurance approach that serves the client when it matters the most. So we invested here in a suite of risk management services for pre and post incidents. And here, in this way, by doing this, it supported the client at claim stage, but also it helped the broker to build that long-lasting relationship with the client from inception, basically ongoing. And what this really does is it creates the awareness and it drives proper risk management, and also it provides ongoing support at very critical times. So we really had a clear vision when we embarked on our digital journey, and we wanted to cater for the SMEs. We ensured that the wording was in plain and simple language, and that the cover really spoke to that of an SME, right? Which is why you'll find that your core covers like PI and PL, you can add on accidents and health, directors and officers onto one policy online, making it customizable and modular. Now, you would have seen that interesting stat about risk management. So I just want to take a few seconds to unpack that very quickly. Risk management has not kept pace with the proliferation of digital transformation. Sounds like a mouthful, right? But going back to that stat, if 54% of our clients perceive this as the most valuable, then isn't there a gap opening? One that could probably really only be closed by risk innovation at scale. COVID-19 has propelled digital transformation, making it, one of the top trends in business today. However, most of these transformations are undertaken without sort of any formal way to capture and manage the associated risks, leaving us with a huge gap, especially for the SMEs who are forced to remain competitive. But guys, how could they manage the risk if they're unaware of how exposed they really are, right? It's a question, and a very burning one at that. So just an example from what we did here is, to this end, we've partnered with the various suppliers on a cyber liability product to run the vulnerability scans, and that really, is making it very quick and easy at quote stage. And what this does is that brokers are able to be in a better position to render their advice and sell the cover, having understood really, where the client's position on risk management really is here. Just some interesting stats that I wanted to share and some key indicators from our journey once again with you on the platform. What I've done is I've pulled apart our data. And here I really looked at the hit ratio. And this is when brokers conducted these quotes versus when the underwriters in our office conduct the quotes themselves. And we see a major disparity in the figures in that the broker hit ratio, and this is from quote sale, is 75%, shockingly, right? But when an underwriter conducts it at our offices, it scales down to 35%. Now, we attribute this difference to the fact that brokers, at most times, will be in front of their client online, making it easier to conclude the sale. Now, if there's anything you probably learned about me in this really short space of time, is that I love using stats and I love backing up my findings. So McKinsey ran an interesting survey on about 1,000 clients in 4 different countries. And what they did was they wanted to identify the shopping experience and the preference. And topically, what frustrated consumers the most is the slow turnaround times. But you already knew this, right? You didn't need a McKinsey stat to tell you that. You also probably already experienced it. And we understand this to be significantly critical when it comes to the SME market, where they are often tendering. And the beauty part of the platform is that when brokers quote, they can actually get from getting a quote to activating a policy under 10 minutes. And this substantially helps the broker and puts that client, that SME, in a better position to actually acquire that tender. So by now you would have all heard of instant gratification, right? It's that feeling that we get when we instantly gain the answers to something. That feeling that Google provides us, when we don't have the answers. For example, sitting around a dinner table and you really want to know that drummer in that rock band, that's your favorite rock band, but you just can't get the name. Or product liability, what is it? Public liability. Let me just quickly Google search. Oh, guys, and this is really a thing. This was actually the top 5 most searched for questions under Google. People actually searched for what do men want? Now, I cannot promise you that an online platform in the insurance industry similar to Pocket Underwriter will ever generate an answer for that question, but you should be able to have those answers to those tough questions that your clients pose to you just at your fingertips. You shouldn't have to call someone in the office at their convenience to get those answers, right? On what type of cover should I provide the client in the retail industry? Or what is product liability, or even the difference between inefficacy and product recall? You should be able to go online and get those answers, enabling you to render advice to your client in real time and also make you look like the expert you really are. So speaking of instant gratification, I've just taken some stats again once from our experience with online platforms and what brokers really asked us over this lockdown period. So I've sifted through some of those burning questions that approach the desk, genuine brokers and genuine questions, genuine instances. And funnily enough, brokers were not able to perform the simplest of tasks due to or in this lockdown period. And so we matched it with, some of the quick things that an online platform can support, if they had it readily available to them. Believe it or not, but some clients were not able to complete proposal forms. And it's annoying, and it's due to the fact that they were not able to go into the office to scan the documents, etc. And this is really the basic requisite for acquiring a quote, right? Which really made attracting new business quite difficult from some brokers. So the platform was able to allow the clients to complete the link online to the qualifying questions, wherever the client really was. So whether he was overseas or she was overseas, or just, at the click of a button on their phone. And by using the link, the client can complete these qualifying questions, thereby, allowing the broker and the underwriter to receive the information and actually generate that quote. Now, due to the complex lines of business that we specifically find ourselves in and we're involved with, providing holistic cover to the client may be somewhat a challenge, especially for the SMEs, especially for the brokers, because SMEs require more than just public liability, and attorneys require more than just your standard PI. So the industry's tool basically unpacks, and if you channel through it, you're able to click on a specific industry, and the tool really provides insights into some of the basic covers that client would need in that industry. Now, juggling conference platforms such as MS Teams and Zooms, and literally keeping track of the advice you offered, I know can get tricky, right? Because there's a lot happening on your screen all at one time, etc. But the ability to use the platform online, especially with regards to the pocket underwriter, we have a record of advice portion and that supports your current record of advice. And what you really can do here is click on the button, it starts recording and basically tracks every page that you're speaking to with your client. At the end of the session, it PDFs, it bundles it, and it's in your inbox within minutes. And this can be used to support your current record of advice in terms of the various, topical items that you went through with the client. Let's face it, clients love options and so do we. But the time it takes for the broker to mediate between the insurer and the client for different limits can take several hours. So if brokers use platforms when quoting live with a client, a platform that can basically allow them to adjust limits online, Pocket Underwriter does that as well. The broker can scale up the limits, allowing transparency and a quicker decision, resulting in a higher hit rate. Now, these are just a few ways an online platform can support your initiatives. And lastly, and just before I draw to a close, from our own experience, we noted a spike in usage by brokers just using the digital platform itself. Pocket Underwriter during 2020 had a significant increase in gross written premium income. So it really became evident to us that the brokers were using the tool during their virtual meetings with the customers, etc. So we attribute the success rate to the real-time ability to tailor the coverage to suit the client. But let me just take you through a quick video to actually show you some of the insights in which we were able to assist brokers to use the platform online. So here's a quick video of how it works in our world. So it's very customizable and modular. You can connect with Zoom, MS Teams, really any platform that you would like. The nice part about it is that you get to discuss complex risks. You can show them a few claims videos, probably to scare them a bit. But basically, you can tailor the quote with your client in real time. You can go from quote to activate under 10 minutes and all the documents in the palm of your hands. So this is just some of the ways that we were able to support the brokers in this time. And also the onboarding process is really critical for brokers. In our experience, allowing them to sign up in a quick and efficient manner really is a critical part of the success of any system. As I draw to a close today, it's often argued that digital advancements are replacing the human element. So I'd like to leave you with a thought. At the end of the day, this still is a people's business. And I'm reminded of the quote by Tim O'Reilly when I say that. Basically, he says, what new tech does is create new opportunities to do a job that customers want done. So on that note, I hope I left you with some thought-provoking concepts. Happy to share any further insights with you on broking in a digital world. My name is Alicia Narain Sami. Please feel free to get in touch with me and enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you, Alicia. And that was a thought-provoking presentation indeed. Thoroughly enjoyed it. If there's anybody who does not believe in the power of digital transformation after that, then I don't know what's going to convince you. Just an update on our attendees. We are sitting on over 1,000 attendees today. Can you believe it? Huge thank you to all of our attendees for your continued support. We really do appreciate it. All right, our next speaker now is no stranger to InsureTalk. Thokozile Mahlangu is the CEO of the IISA, and she will be giving us her regular industry update. So over to you, Thokozile.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It has been over a year since we've had to adjust and embrace the new way of doing business, and of course, doing life in general. Congratulations to CN&CO and all partners involved for this platform, which has become a go-to platform for skills development. Another knowledge development platform is the annual insurance conference, the African Insurance Exchange. We have developed content that is meaningful and relevant to you as an insurance expert in the financial services sector. The content is reaching and touching basically every function within the insurance industry. If you're an intermediary, if you're an advisor, if you're an insurer, underwriter, compliance officers, look out for it. So we've categorized the content into leadership, regulatory matters, human capital, technology, innovation, environmental, social and governance, future outlook, and macroeconomic matters. Today, I'm going to unpack topics under the leadership category as well as the regulatory. We have a topic titled The Evolution of Insurance, Insurance 2050. That topic is going to unpack how insurance has evolved from where it started, where we are today, and how insurance is going to look in the future. It's going to look at moving from resilience to reinvention in order to succeed in uncertain times. It's also going to look at competitive reinvention and new ideas. Another topic we have under the leadership is building resilient organizations for a sustainable sector. This is going to look at market developments, mergers and acquisitions, new entrants, and volatility. The last topic under leadership is intentional transformation. Now, that topic is going to look into ethical and effective leadership. It's going to look at transforming for success. Another key discussion point under that is enterprise and supplier development within the financial sector. Within the regulatory category, we have the following topics. The world post-COVID. We are all wondering how the world is going to look like. And this topic is going to unpack and explore how the world is going to look like post-COVID, particularly from a policy wording and insurance covers perspective. We're going to look at the lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to look at the impact of the pandemic in insurance. Global trends will be another aspect we look into, and digital impact. Another topic within the regulatory category is the future is now. The key discussions under that topic is dealing with disruption, over-regulation, policy uncertainty, and uncertain economic growth. We're also going to look at cyber threats, the speed of technological change, telematics, and the topics will also touch on the state of D&O within the insurance sector. Lastly, under the regulatory category, we're going to look at a topic titled The Future of Data Regulation. There we are going to marry regulation, legislation, as well as data. The topic is going to look at global governance failure, navigating tax and legal matters in response to COVID-19, artificial intelligence, nanotechnologies, Internet of Things, and overall new technologies. We will also look at challenges in legislation and regulations within this topic. We will share more on the topics and speakers in the next week or so on our social media platforms as well as on email. Also keep a lookout for the conference updates on Cover Magazine, FA News, FIA Inside. All those are our conference media partners. Remember to register if you have not done so.
Thank you so much, Tolazile, for that update on the African Insurance Exchange Conference. We are certainly looking forward to it as an industry. Just a reminder once again that today's session has been accredited for 2.5 CPD hours, courtesy of the IISA. All right, over to our next speaker now. He goes by the name of Simon Campbell Young. He is the Vice President of Global Sales at Digimune, and he's going to be talking to us about protecting your digital identity. So without any further ado, then it is over to you, Simon Campbell Young.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Allow me just to share my screen quickly. Right, thank you very much for having me. I do appreciate the time. Really nice to talk to you all. we're a digital organization providing digital solutions to multiple industries, and very specifically at the moment into the insurance industry, whereby we provide solutions that actually mitigate and manage risk. So I thought I would just outline on this session what we are seeing and what the world is seeing from a global context as the new threat landscape. And that threat landscape is called digital risk. And this new category is actually recently been defined by Forrester and Gartner, who predict where these new global trends are coming from and where these new cyber threat landscapes are emanating from, and the road down these new environments and how to protect against the space. So without further ado, our organization is a company called Digimune at digimune.com, and we are a partner with SHA, providing solutions. So without further ado, I'll just jump into it quickly. So first of all, digital risk. Let me jump to the first slide just to try and highlight what is digital risk. So we all understand that this is business yesterday, right? Or even for ourselves as consumers to a certain extent, we look to protect, for example, our devices, and at an organization level, we look to protect, the endpoint devices, the notebooks, the laptops, the PCs, our mobile devices, and we look to protect the network so that we can, see what's happening across that network, and then we look to also monitor the flow of email out into the organization and the exfiltration of email back out again. And in a traditional space, we look to put a nice cozy firewall around that, and life is good, and everything is nice and safe for us as individuals and also the organization per se. But as we know, business yesterday is not quite what we understand. So this is business today, right? We're all active on a number of external channels and external environments, and so this external sharing of data is what creates additional digital residue, and essentially, therefore, what creates this new threat landscape called digital risk. And it comes via your extended digital exposure. So in very simple terms, just briefly, we're integrated into all of these environments. When I say integrated, I mean we directly integrated, for example, into Facebook at a very simple level. So that allows us to view, scour, scrape, monitor, and also take down information that is dangerous, fictitious, nefarious, or threat representative for an organization or for an individual. And we monitor, and we are integrated into all of these social media platforms where a lot of dangerous activity is taking place. And if you understand this risk exposure area at a risk from a company perspective, and very specifically when it comes to cyber and cyber liability, the days of, for example, a hacking group trying to pound the server in terms of looking for cracks and weaknesses, yes, it does still happen, but logically, it's far easier from a hacking perspective to come in via the organization's website, or come into the organization via the organization's social media accounts, or at an extended level, get into the organization via the staff social media platforms and via staff social media engagement, logically befriending, and then understanding the profile of the staff member inside the organization, then gaining access into the organization via the staff member. And this overexposure of data and information, for example, on social media, creates a huge and an enormous volume of digital risk, both to organizations and individuals and families. We're also integrated into all of the global registrars, so we can monitor data and information that's sitting, for example, on our clients' websites, payment pages, coupon pages, subdomains. We're able to monitor all of that content. By the way, our solution runs live. It's 24/7. It's 365. And it's also a platform, so there's nothing installed. You are logging into the platform and utilizing the services that we provide. We're also able to monitor across the mobile app stores, Windows, iOS, and Android, so we can see data and content that is dangerous, fictitious, or problematic in nature, that's floating in and around the apps and in and around the app stores, very specifically when data is being exfiltrated. At a very practical level, you only need to look at, for example, the rise of dating apps and just how much data people are putting into a dating app, and just how easy those apps are able to infiltrate and then exfiltrate that data to be used somewhere for some kind of nefarious activity. We're also able to track all of the global web marketplaces, so that, for example, our customers that might be trading on these marketplaces, we can pick up something as simple as gray market goods, counterfeit goods, so that we can monitor and protect our customers' digital life insofar as they're trading on these open marketplaces. We can monitor, we're running hundreds and thousands of algorithms across this environment here, the blogs, forums, news, review sites, e-signs. We are able to monitor customer, organization, and personal data across these environments, so that we can see, for example, something as simple as, you've all heard of fake news. We've got a huge amount of object character recognition built into our system, bucket loads of machine learning and artificial intelligence that also enables us to view and monitor imagery. So that in very simple terms, if there was an image of an individual or a VIP or celebrity or a director in a fictitious post, or holding something in their hand in a photograph, we're able to pick it up, and we're able to detect it. We're also monitoring the deep and dark web. Once again, 24/7, 365, Tor, I2P, the pastebin sites. And what our solution is doing there is it's looking out for your key digital assets in terms of fraudulent input or fraudulent usage. And in general terms, your key digital assets, when it comes to online fraud and banking or transactional theft, generally your key digital assets are always your ID number, your email number, your credit card, your bank account, your passport number, your address, medical aid detail, and that type of information, when stolen and exfiltrated, is sold across multiple sources across the dark web. If you've been following the news recently, you will have seen, for example, a recent hack on LinkedIn. You will have seen the increased profile around the hack that took place on Facebook. 530 million records are just flooding now across and onto the dark web. Now, you know, ideally, in an ideal situation, this level of information flooding onto the dark web for the business is extremely dangerous from a cyber risk perspective, and very difficult to monitor at a cyber liability insurance perspective, and very specifically for organizations, very specifically SMMEs, who don't have potentially a robust defense posture in terms of their network security, or a CTO or a CIO monitoring that landscape. And then also we monitor the email collaboration sites very simply, which we're seeing a lot of at the moment, whereby threat actors are creating fictitious Gmail accounts in your name. So what they might do is they might just have your name dot surname or your standard email address, but what they might do is just put a prefix or a number behind and then @gmail.com, and then intercepting your emails and then starting to talk to, for example, the bank or service provider of yours on a new email address, and then saying, right, I'd like to change my banking details. Have you seen my new email address? And then, for example, having funds transferred to an alternate account. We've been dealing with a case this week where somebody was defrauded on an email scam of excess of R1 million on a transfer out from the UK. And then we monitor the code sharing sites. This is where a huge amount of malware and Trojans are embedded into code that's on-sold and used in other development projects. And then so at a very simple level, I just thought I'd highlight a few key topics here for a consumer. Why you would think that digital risk is, why do you need digital risk? So clearly we live in an era of digital transformation. We all know it, we all understand it. For those of you with kids that have been learning online over this COVID period, we're seeing it more and more and more. And so digital transformation and digital risk go hand in hand. And your increased digital footprint across these channels and these new environments, expose your digital identity, right? So social media platforms, online banking, e-commerce, anywhere where you are inputting data into, for example, an online PDF document and resubmitting it back to the bank, that kind of documentation in its digital format is easy to infiltrate, or is easy to pick up, spoof, skim, collect the data, and then send on. And logically, the larger your digital footprint, logically, the larger your public attack surface. And then the categories of risk from an individual perspective. So it's theft of your personal information, such as your credit cards, your bank account details, as I mentioned, hacking or hijacking of your social media accounts, and then fake content being posted. I'm sure you've all seen, for those of you that might or might not be on Facebook, infrequently you get someone saying, hey guys, please forgive me, that's not me posting, someone's taken over my account. We're able to see that, we're able to stop it, and we're able to remove any content that somebody might be posting in that space. Obviously, another danger is loss of funds due to scams and malware and phishing attacks. And then obviously, another category of this is clearly just general cyber, and then physical threats. In this space here, we have a quite a sophisticated module where we're able to monitor, for example, online chatter about high profile executives, government, VIPs, celebrities, directors, whatever it might be. We're able to monitor the online chatter around them, assuming there's a physical threat. And then a huge component of what we look to do and what we do with this solution is we're able to monitor from a kid's perspective. We're able to monitor content online. We're able to pick up, for example, unwanted content relating to sex, drugs, violence, profanity, and a whole bunch more. And then we've got a whole bunch of indicators built into the system that picks up early signs of depression, cyberbullying, cyber shaming, and very much grooming. Our system can pick up in sentence intonation in the dialogue that's taking place on the social media platforms for early signs of grooming. And then at a business level, why do businesses need digital risk protection? Obviously, as businesses go online, it's having a wide range of impact, both positive and negative, in terms of businesses now staying online as much as they can, trying to transact online as much as they can, and very specifically over this COVID period, you're just seeing more and more activity online. And what's driving it? Trends like e-commerce, big data, machine learning, AI, IoT, obviously, and it could lead to, obviously it can lead to huge productivity gains, but obviously at an exposure level, it just creates greater risk. However, the disruption to existing businesses and social media leads to increased risk, right? So increased risk to business operations, to business continuity, to sensitive data. Bucket loads of data is being exfiltrated at any given time into the wrong hands. And bearing in mind, in the new world, it's not a virus and a blue screen shutdown, right? Data is taken, it's stored, it's looked at, people are building a profile, and it can be a long time before the actual cybercrime is actually committed. Sometimes malware sits and resides for up to 12 months inside an organization, just collecting and harvesting data to be used at a later time when the pickings are ripe, for want of a bad analogy. And so categories of risk from a business perspective, once again, cyber, insider threats, phishing, malware, data loss, obviously revenue loss is absolutely critical. Customer scams, piracy, counterfeit goods, protecting the brand. This is absolutely critical. you know, sometimes that level of brand destruction is unquantifiable when it comes to financial terms, but at a long-term perspective, it can be incredibly harming. And then physical threats, I talked about that. I talked about that earlier. And so clearly, modern organizations rely on digital platforms. More and more digital platforms are prevalent right now, whether they are insurance platforms, whether they are transactional platforms, banking platforms. The more people are on those platforms, you know, the bigger the danger. And we're all encouraging our teams, our staff, our families to stay on these platforms from a productivity perspective, but that level of exposure in terms of data creates additional digital risk. Clearly, we know that all businesses are operating on multiple platforms, whether it's email, social, and so on and so forth, and therefore that environment just becomes more and more dangerous. And so what we've done is at a consumer level, we have a bunch of solutions. The first of which is identity protection. As I mentioned, we're able to not only in our identity protection module, we're able to not only monitor and view, but we're able to notify on breach notifications. So for example, right now, if you're running our identity protection module and your data was floating around on the dark web due to the Facebook breach, you'd be getting notifications on from our platform right now to say, right, we picked up your email address here, or we found your mobile number there, or we found additional information that resides on your Facebook profile. We see it floating around on the dark web. We're then able to, you know, notify you, tell you how to remediate, and so on and so forth. And then in our social module, this is where you, as an individual, you can upload your social media accounts, and then have that data on your social media platforms monitored. And then at a family level, this here is where we add the advanced options around content moderation, looking a big slant onto cyberbullying, cyber shaming, and so on and so forth. And at a family level, we you know, a mom or a dad is able to then run the family's digital exposure on, you know, generally across the dark web, and then very specifically on the social media platforms. And then we have a premium solution, which includes another term called doxing. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's where I, without explicit authorization, post information on you onto the dark web for some nefarious purpose. And then obviously we run a takedown service inside this space here for a consumer. And then very similarly for businesses, we have a bunch of solutions over here, and these solutions then take care of the business's digital landscape. We're able to run the deep and dark web monitoring for the business and the business's digital assets. We've got a brand protection solution, as I mentioned earlier, that looks out for example, logo misuse, merchandise, gray marketing, merchandise misuse. We're looking at copyright infringements. We can monitor, for example, at an insurance level, we can monitor misuse of policy wording, customer information. We can see that exfiltration flowing out of an organization and where it might or might not be appearing. And then from a business perspective, we're able to monitor the business's social media landscape, as I mentioned previously. And then the domain monitoring, we're able to monitor all of the domains and subdomains for the organization, making sure that, you know, protecting against phishing and malware and embedded code that sits inside these subdomains or domains that are just harvesting data. The executive protection solution I mentioned earlier, this is a really sophisticated solution where we are able to monitor at an extensive level the full breadth of an executive's digital exposure, really checking on, for example, fictitious posts about a company by a competitor, or for example, in the worst case example, a rogue CEO who's posting fictitious information about a company he currently works for, he or she works for. And then the takedown, the remediation service, this is absolutely critical. And this for us is really key. It's all very well being able to see something that's dangerous, all very well being able to get a notification that something is dangerous or illicit or fraudulent or dangerous in terms of its content or imagery, but it's our ability to be able to have that information taken down. And once again, purely because we are integrated into that environment, we're able to then instruct the takedowns for and on your behalf. But once again, just in simple terms, we're a platform, we're a digital platform, we're a service. So once again, it's a login service that the company, admin, manager, CTO, CIO, or an individual, a mom or dad or a teenager would log onto the platform and then input the information that they want managed. It's multi-factor authenticated and highly secure in terms of how we manage the backend. But our system is basically a set of tools that allows you to monitor and manage this new crazy space called digital risk. So once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time. It's been wonderful to talk to everybody. If anyone would like to speak to us, obviously pick up with the team internally. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simon, for that very insightful but scary presentation. It's quite frightening how data breaches are happening more and more frequently. So very important for us to raise our awareness when it comes to our digital footprint. Thank you once again. All right, so a reminder once again that it is our first birthday. So our entertainment segment is going to have a little bit of a twist. It's going to be special. We're going to go into those videos now that you sent to us, wishing us a happy birthday, after which we will take a short 5-minute comfort break. A reminder once again that InsureTalk12 is taking place on the 13th of May. The link to register has been posted in the chat right now. We've made it easy for you. Head on over to the link to register yourself and book your seat right now. So we're going to head on over to those videos, after which there will be a short comfort break, and then we will come back with Elsa Jordan. So take it away.
Happy birthday, InsureTalk. It really is a great privilege and honor to wish you a happy birthday. My name is Carl Nolter, and I am part of the CN&CO team. And a year ago, when we came up with the concept of InsureTalk, we really didn't know if it was going to work or not. But many people have shown that this can be a big success. So massive congratulations to the CN&CO events team for doing this. A big thank you to I2, who was they were our first sponsor, and then we've had many wonderful sponsors post I2, but a big thanks for them for believing in us and taking a leap of faith. Simon Coleman, when I phoned him and said, Simon, please, would you be our MC? Didn't think twice, was as always prepared to help. And Simon and his team just add so much value in the industry. And without Simon as our first MC, this wouldn't have been a success. Massive thanks to Leah, Bianca Lagrange, and those entertainers who, in very dark days of lockdown, and I think we forget how dark they were, but in those very dark days, jumped on board to just have an opportunity to perform, to help us celebrate, to help us through those dark times, and for them to believe in us was phenomenal. And it's great to see that they've continued to just add value and do well in the industry. So thanks to the entertainers. Massive thanks to all the attendees, those brave souls who joined us in the beginning. There were a couple of people, and now we've grown to thousands. It really is a way to connect, to support each other, to learn, to grow, of course, to earn CPD points. But it just proves again that insurance truly is the bedrock of our economy. And innovation, agility, resilience, humor, there is just so much in this industry to be proud of. So to InsureTalk, happy birthday. Wish you many more. And to everybody in the industry, as we continue to serve our clients and to add value on a daily basis, good luck and thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the session.
Hi, I'm Andia Small. I'm from Santam. I'm a technical manager. May I just say, I hope InsureTalk that you will have one exciting year ahead of you, and may there be many, many more. Happy birthday, InsureTalk.
Good day to the InsureTalk team and everyone associated with the organization. My name is Lunganjaha from Santam and I'm a project manager responsible for crop insurance. Wow, I can't believe it's been more than a year since we've had InsureTalk on our shows. Time really flies. We're thankful to InsureTalk and its partners and everyone associated with the organization. We don't take for granted those CBD points. We're really thankful for that, the innovation that you brought to the table. And for that, I'm saying to you, happy birthday, InsureTalk.
Hello there, my name is Ruth Sibanda. I work for Easy Rent Rental Services as an insurance supervisor. Happy birthday, InsureTalk.
This is Nikki Alexandra, Director of Infinity Insurance Brokers, and I'd like to wish InsureTalk a very happy first birthday. You guys rock.
Elna Rutman of Elna Rutman Brokers, a key individual and director and fellow Aries, would like to thank you for excellent webinars that our brokerage have benefited from greatly. Happy birthday, InsureTalk.
Hey everyone, Simon Coleman here. I had the absolute privilege of being the first host of the InsureTalk series. That was back in April when we were trying to figure out how we were going to stay connected, earn CPD, and of course stop ourselves from going completely nuts. I guess 2 out of 3 isn't bad, right? I want to congratulate the CN&CO team for setting a new standard in conferences in South Africa. You guys absolutely rock, and happy birthday, InsureTalk.
Hi, my name is John Williams. I'm a technical manager at Santam. Just like to wish InsureTalk a happy birthday. Thank you for the great content and making it so much easier to obtain credits while having fun. A special happy birthday to you all, and thank you for all the hard work. Happy birthday, InsureTalk.
Happy first birthday, InsureTalk team. My name is Gianluca Tucci, partner at CN&CO, and I can't believe it's been a year already. These sessions have been amazing in bringing ideas, collaborations, and most importantly, people from the wonderful insurance and broader industries together to discuss, share, and move the world forward. I can't wait to see what the next year has in store. Well done.
Hi, I'm Nolene Hansen, the KZN representative for Travel Insurance Consultants. Thank you, InsureTalk, for keeping us connected through your virtual platforms and educating us through the leading industry professionals, and all the while keeping us entertained with an added bonus of earning CBD points.
Happy birthday, InsureTalk.
Good day. My name is Shazia Akub. I am employed at Budget Insurance as a claims processor. InsureTalk, happy first birthday. It's been an amazing journey. I've been with you all since day one as an attendee, and I've been really glad to be part of this journey. You guys have been phenomenal in keeping us informed and updated as to what's happening in our industry, and that has really helped me in my line of work. So here's to many, many more years, and all the happiness, all the success, and many more achievements for you all. Happy birthday. Enjoy.
Hi, InsureTalk. My name is Cindy. I'm from Indware Risk Services. I work on claims. I just want to thank you for everything and hope you have a most amazing happy birthday.
Hi, I'm Tema Mashango from Santam Insurance. I'm a technical manager. I'd like to wish the Insurance Talk a happy first birthday and thank you for all the contribution that you've made in the industry. Happy birthday, Insurance Talk.
A very happy birthday, InsureTalk from the Lombard Insurance Partnerships team. Thank you for connecting the industry and keeping us up to date with the latest in the insurance industry. May there be many more to come because we thoroughly enjoy them.
Hi, I'm Wimpy van der Merwe, the CEO of Global Choices and Client-centric Africa. I just wanted to say thank you to the InsureTalk team for creating these monthly webinars that are CPD accredited in a time last year that was very uncertain for all of us in the insurance industry. I attended many of these webinars over the year and I shared valuable insights and helped me to connect more dots in the insurance industry, especially from the outside of the industry, to create new innovative products and services for both companies. Happy birthday, InsureTalk, and may you grow from strength to strength. Thank you.
Hello, this is Rigwani Isela from Santam Legal Department. I'm a litigation manager. I just want to say to InsureTalk, happy birthday, InsureTalk. Happy birthday, InsureTalk. Happy first birthday. Have a good one.
Happy first birthday, InsureTalk. Thank you for your insights and your facts on all the industry developments and of course the CPD points. You guys have been a tremendous help during the lockdown and even constantly, and we hope for many more webinars.
Hi everyone, my name is Ayanda Mtola. I'm from Santam. I'm a change management assistant intern. We are celebrating a very big milestone. Looking back from last year to this year, this is a big achievement. I would like to say thank you for your dedication, thank you for your commitment, thank you for your hard work, thank you for a great job well done. Happy birthday, InsureTalk.
Excellence, I say, is an attitude and not a skill. And the word excellence for me summarizes the success of the digital events team at CN&CO. Just about a year ago, they launched their business during a time when everyone else was grappling with the outbreak of the virus around the world. And they've given us, as the insurance industry of South Africa, a fantastic vehicle to connect with our market, with our brokers, to promote our products, to build relationships and stay connected during a time of disconnectedness. So happy anniversary, guys, and continue to do things as well as you do.
and we are back from our comfort break. Hope you managed to get a coffee or whatever it is you needed to do. So how heartwarming were those messages? My goodness, absolutely love the effort that went into each and every one of them. And clearly some of you are not in the right industry. I saw 1 or 2 idols contestants there. So thank you once again. The celebrations do continue. But for now, Llewellyn is going to share a short message as the head of events at CN&CO in a celebration of InsureTalk's first birthday.
So thank you very much, Nani, and thanks for being our host, and you're such an incredible host.
Thank you.
So from InsureTalk and from the CN&CO events team, I would like to thank each and every person that's online now. We have over 1,000 people online again, and the support is just incredible. I have no words. I was saying to the team earlier today, it's still surreal that we are here 1 year later. We started InsureTalk at a braai as a discussion saying, okay, what is the events team going to do after lockdown? We lost all of our events, and we came up with this idea, and we were not sure if the events industry will support, if the insurance industry would support, but here we are 1 year later, 11 editions with thousands of registrations. In the past year, we had over 15,000 registrations from the insurance industry, which is incredible for an online event, still so new and such a baby step forward. So we look forward to many more InsureTalks. First of all, I would like to thank our very first sponsor, I2 and Marsh, that came on board in an incredible way where they were not sure, is this going to work? Are we going to get support? And you guys stood by us. Also, Simon, thank you so much for being our MC during 2020, all the way from Cape Town, tuning in virtually. Now we can actually be in a studio. When we started out InsureTalk, there was no such thing. We had to be virtual 100%. But here we are today. We're growing from strength to strength. We're in a virtual studio. The brand is growing, and that is all thanks to you, our partners, all of our partners that supported us in 2020 and during 2021. We look forward to so many more sessions in 2021, more virtual sessions, live interactions from InsureTalk, some creative connect sessions. So there's so much more that InsureTalk is bringing for you this year as we grow more and more. But thanks to each and every person that is joining in, that has joined in for InsureTalk, and the team behind the scenes, especially Francois Hubert, Romain Akub working the digital side, Carl Nolte assisting us with a lot of the content. I know Kurt is also out there assisting us with the agendas and the partner management. So each and every person that is helping with InsureTalk, we cannot do this without you. And we are looking forward to walking this road with you for many more months to come.
Thank you, Llewellyn, and here's many, many more celebrations. It's been an absolutely amazing journey, and we look forward to celebrating more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nani.
All right, and we are back on to our next speaker now. We waste no time. Our next speaker is Elsa Jordan. She is the head of claims and legal at CIB. CIB, of course, is one of our event partners today. Elsa Jordan will be sharing some insights with us about liability exposure. Who let the dogs out? I have no doubt that you're going to tell us exactly who, Elsa. So without any further ado, it is over to you.
Thanks, Nani. I just wanted to say from CIB's point of view, we just want to also wish you a very happy birthday, and we are very proud to be partnering with you. So my talk is going to be a little bit different to everybody else's. Everybody else spoke about digitalization and the future. Mine is going to go a little bit back into the past, and I'm going to talk to you about one of the trends that we've seen in relation to liability claims and the trends in the last year, where liability claims in a lot of instances and for a lot of insurers have increased. And there are many themes that come to the fore. And one of the things that I thought I would speak to you today about is who let the dogs in. So Nani said, who let the dogs out? And I can't blame her, because I know all of you have that song in the background that says who let the dogs out. So it's going to be stuck in your mind for the rest of the day. So my talk is slightly different on who let the dogs in this instance. So I just want to quickly share my screen with you. Let's just see if I share that, if everybody can see that properly. Let me just see. Okay. So In terms of this talk, as I said to you, one of the liability exposures that we've seen in particular is an increase in the last few years of dog bites. So this has also made it into the mainstream news, and you would have seen more often than not now, there are media reports and reports of dog bites. They vary. It's sometimes people that are out on the street that are the subject of dog bites, of dogs being out on the loose. They're often, though, within families. It's sometimes your precious family pet and part of your family that attacks, some of the family members. It's often, as you would see from some of these headlines that are on the presentation, it's often kids as well, unfortunately, that are the victim of these attacks. So some interesting info. There isn't a lot by way of statistics in South Africa. Some of the statistics are rather old, and there isn't a large body of statistics. I've looked at mostly the prevalence of these incidents being reported in the media, and then I've also looked at some statistics in other jurisdictions. So for instance, the UK, the US. And in the US, for instance, if you look at the last few years, they say that there are 4.5 million attacks a year of dogs on people in the US. Now, out of those attacks, not all of them are serious and not all of them require medical assistance, but out of that figure, about 800,000 needed medical assistance, and some of them are rather serious and lead to fatalities. So that just puts that stat into perspective. If we look at the certain dog breeds, again, depending on which studies you look at and which areas of the world that you look at these, the stats are, strangely enough, in one of the stats, your family friend, the Labrador, came out as, the dog who's been reported for the most attacks. But I think, again, if we look at the US, a lot of the attacks were pit bull attacks. There are other dogs that make it onto that list. For instance, the German Shepherds, the Rottweilers, the American Bulldog, which is a very different dog to the English Bulldogs, your Mastiffs, and strangely enough, even Huskies. But if you put that into perspective, and I know the US is not necessarily comparable to the South African market, but out of the fatalities that they had in 2019, I think there were somewhere about 46 fatalities of dog bites in the US in 2019. 33 of those were as a result of pit bull attacks. And pit bulls only comprise 7% of the dog population in the US. So that just puts it into perspective for you. If you look at certain of the types of attacks and behaviors, in the UK as well as in the US, a lot of male men are injured. I've even found a few articles where, they try and guide male men, delivery people on, how to befriend dogs, how to not provoke attacks. So that's an interesting statistic. And as I said, unfortunately, children. And children seem to be quite vulnerable. And as I've said, if you look at stats that we have, the limited stats that we have in a South African perspective, it does seem to suggest that children are extremely vulnerable for dog attacks. In a relatively older study, they looked at the trauma cases that came into a Cape Town hospital, and 1.5% of those traumatic incidents related to dog bites, and they said children between the age of 6 and 10 seem to have been the victims of these attacks. So when I speak about consequences, when I have on the slide and I talk about consequences, that's where I'm just bringing home the idea of how serious some of these dog attacks are. They are often quite serious. They often lead to traumatic injuries. They often lead to disfigurement. There's sometimes amputations, and as I've said, there's also fatalities in certain instances with these dog attacks. This again, you'll see it's outdated. It doesn't seem like it's been updated since 2019, but it's just a few stats that I could find on Wikipedia in terms of fatalities in the South African market. You will again see that out of the 8 or 9 instances that are listed there on the side is that the large majority of these victims were children that were fatalities. You'll see there some of the dog breeds are named, pit bull, Rottweilers. Some are not obviously identified. They may be mixed breeds. The information may not be available. So here we get to who let the dogs in. Now I just want to chat to you about usually the liability sections of the policy, as well as the legal implications. So how does a dog owner get cover in terms of his policy for these dogs? So who let the dogs in? A lot of us think about the dogs as our family members, and I mean, I'm one of those dog lovers who are of that thought. So they don't qualify as family members in terms of your policy wording. But here I've just quoted a very generic wording of a personal liability policy, and you'll see I've highlighted the important words. There needs to be what your personal liability policy indemnifies you for is for your legal liability to pay compensation to third parties, mostly due to injury, death, or damage. Now, in the normal course, before I speak about, dog instances, and they're not always just in terms of dog attacks. As such, they may be, other behavior as well that we'll get to. But usually, and I'm going to take an example unrelated to a dog bite now, but if you look at the legal liability and how the legal liability attaches, from a legal perspective, there is usually 3 ways by which that legal liability can attach, and it's either in terms of delect, in terms of the South African common law, or by way of contract, or it's introduced by way of legislation. So in terms of our scenario where there is injury or death, it follows the delictual principles. And what you need to assess whether there will be legal liability in such an instance is the 5 elements of a delect. So the first element you'd look at is whether there's conduct. So I'm going to use an example unrelated to a dog bite, assuming you need either positive conduct or you need an omission. Somebody failed to do something. So if somebody is digging a manhole, one of the municipalities, they're digging a manhole on the side of the road, a passerby walks by, somebody accidentally turns and pushes the passerby into, the manhole. That is positive conduct. The omission is at the end of the day when the workers are done, they forget to put a warning sign around the manhole or they forget to cover the manhole. That is the failure to do something. There has to be wrongfulness before you could look at whether there's legal liability. That is whether you have a duty. Now, in general, there's a duty in the law that you should not be injuring somebody. It is wrongful to injure someone. And so that is a duty of care, and it's also measured by way of what society and what the convictions of society say. Then you have fault. Your fault is, did you act negligently? Would a reasonable person in the circumstances have foreseen the harm? Would they have taken steps to guard against the harm? And in this instance, did that person fail to take such steps? Contributory negligence is, for instance, you walking towards this manhole, yes, it's open, there are 10 lights shining on the manhole, the victim could have seen they are contributory negligent to that damage, they should have also kept a lookout. Then you've got causation. Assuming for the moment you step in the manhole, you injure your leg, but now you suffer from sinus headaches, obviously completely unrelated to your injury, and then you would have had to have suffered damage. So it doesn't matter how negligent somebody was, if you haven't suffered damage, there is no claim. Now, in terms of dog bites, you would not go through all these 5 elements to look at whether there is liability. Dog bites, pets and domestic animals, as well as tame animals, horses, cattle, sometimes tame meerkats, strange animals find themselves sometimes caught in terms of this action, is there is an action that exists in South African law which imputes strict liability for the actions of your domestic animal. So in other words, that means liability without fault. The owner can be faultless and still be held liable for what the animal has done. Now, while I say my talk is a little bit different to everybody else's, everybody else looked into the future and digitalization, I'm going back to ancient times. This actio has been around in the Roman law since the 12 tables, which is about 450 BC. This was what constituted Roman law at the time, and, you know, by way of a very broad analogy, it's about as old as the 10 Commandments in the Bible. And when, you know, in one of the more publicized cases in South Africa where it came up is O'Callaghan versus Chaplin in 1927 already, where it was considered and it was found that it is part of South African law and it remains part of South African law regardless of how old this principle is. What is quite shocking, if you look at that, that was an appellant division decision, but if you look at it, 1927, that is nearly 100 years ago. It's startling if you look at it from that perspective. So what the court found in that particular instance is that it's satisfactory to find that the actio de pauperie still forms part of our law. I think the conclusion is sound and a just one, for if a man chooses to keep an animal and injury or damage is caused by it to an innocent person, he must make adequate compensation. The owner of the animal and not the injured person must bear the loss. So bear in mind, and you'll see this when I speak to you about some of the other cases just for illustrative purposes, is there is no conduct on the part of the owner necessary to cause the liability. It is there. So who let the dogs in? The law let the dogs in millions of years ago. So if we look a little bit deeper into the actio de pauperie, it does have certain elements. So in other words, if you are liable, you must have been the owner of that domestic animal. The animal must qualify as a domestic animal, and you must have been the owner and in control of that animal when the incident occurred. And the dog, or whichever animal it may be, we're focusing on dogs today, must have acted contrary to its nature. Now that is a very broad discussion on whether an animal acts contrary to its nature, but the bar is set rather high on the understanding that a domesticated animal will not bite people. A domestic animal will not, let's say, chase a cyclist, cause it to fall over. Domestic animal will not go out and attack somebody else's animal. It is that kind of measure that is looked at when you look at these cases. Another thing is the person that is the victim of this attack must be, assuming it happens on your premises, must be on your premises lawfully. So there must be a reason for them to be there. So obviously trespassing would then not qualify. So I've put in a quote here, which I thought was very apt for us to chat about defenses. There was an American attorney, Richard Racehorse Haynes, who was a very colorful guy. And I mean, some of his murder trials has made it into some of the Hollywood movies and so on, where he described his approach some years back to the American Bar Association. And I thought it's a nice lead in for us to discuss the defenses. So it says, say you sue me because you claim my dog bit you. Well, now, this is my defense. My dog doesn't bite. And second, in the alternative, my dog was tied up that night. And third, I don't believe you really got bit. And fourth, I don't have a dog. So if we look at some of the defenses, there are defenses that are available. They are few, and that is what makes this liability so onerous and the risk of liability be attaching so prevalent. So provocation on the part of the injured party or another person or another animal. So if somebody is hitting the dog with a stick, that is provocation. If the dog then bites you, you know, that exonerates the owner of the dog. Conduct on the part of the third party, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. And then, as I've said, the unlawful presence of a person on a property. There are also other considerations, such as vis major. That's something that's completely out of control and out of anybody's control, such as acts of God. The knowledge of risk or the assumption of risk. So if somebody says to you, my dog is going to bite you, do not try to pet my dog, do not stick your hand through the gate, and you do stick your hand through the gate. And if there's an indemnity, I've put some, rather funny signs at the bottom. Those are not true indemnities. Yes, they are warning signs. They're not true indemnities. They're not true disclaimer signs. There are legal requirements for when something is and it isn't, which is a discussion for a different day, but it bears mentioning in this context. If you're very risk averse, when people come to visit you, you can, of course, let them sign indemnities as they come through your door for disclaiming you from liability for anything that might happen on your premises to your visitors. I doubt that many people will follow that route. So if I quickly look at some of the South African case law, you'll see that a lot of these cases have made it to our apex court, one of our apex courts at this stage, which is in the olden days the appellate division, or more recently the Supreme Court of Appeal. And that just shows you the prevalence of this ACTO. And more recently, if you look at some of the dates, there were particularly two cases that were held in September and judged in September at the Supreme Court of Appeal last year. And that just illustrates the point of dog bites are becoming more prevalent. We are seeing it in our environment. We're seeing that we are receiving a lot more cases in terms of dog bites, and it's also because of increased urbanization and more people owning pets. But that just illustrates the point for you, and that is also why there are so many media reports about these instances. But if we quickly talk through these cases, I've chosen some of them for particular principles that I think are important. The first one is Mr. Dippenaar went to a cattle auction, and at the cattle auction he got into the cattle pen and he didn't see the heifers, and Alicia, the heifer, ran into him and caused damage. He fractured his leg, and in this case there was a really quite well thought out attack on the actuaire de pauperie. And it was argued that the actuaire de pauperie should not be part of South African law. It's antiquated, it's draconian. How do you judge the behavior of the animal? And the judge found against them and said, no, we're sorry, it still forms part of South African law. There's a good reason it's there, and the owner should be liable for the conduct of the animal. In another case, and this is where I wanted to speak to you now about the conduct of a third party, this is where it gets interesting, it's Lever versus Purdy. So what happened there is that the owner of the dog went away on holiday, and he asked one of his friends, would he please look after his home and the dog, which the friend of course said yes he would, which a lot of us would do. And Mr. Purdy came, and he was a repair guy, and he asked Mr. Lever, please would you lock up the dog? He didn't do so, and as he put his hand on the gate, the dog attacked him. In this instance, what the court found is that the animal was no longer under the control of the owner. The owner had left the animal in somebody else's control. So in those circumstances, that does exonerate you. That means the actuaire de pauperie would not function against you. You are not the guilty party, somebody else is, and there you would look at the usual delictual principles. So the actuaire de pauperie doesn't then transfer onto the person that's looking after the animal on your behalf, but it does raise an interesting consideration of how many people actually appreciate this and actually appreciate that this negligence could then attach to them. Think about dog walkers, house sitters. We don't really think about how this may impact. Van Meijeren versus Klutter is one of the more recent cases in terms of the actuaire de pauperie, where again they said that the actuaire de pauperie does find application in our law. This illustrates also the blameworthiness of the owner. So in other words, in this particular case, what happened is Van Meijeren and his family were away from home, and they had a defense that it seemed that somebody had tried to gain entry to their property and had broken locks from their gate, and as a result, the gate was open. Whether that was so or whether that wasn't so, that wasn't the consideration for by the time it got to the Supreme Court of Appeal. The court said that even if we accept that, you cannot get away from liability for somebody else's conduct. The only time that that can happen is if somebody else's conduct actually causes the dog to do something. In this case, the three dogs getting out of the yard, that's neither here nor there. It didn't cause the dogs to attack. It caused the dogs to, if that was even so, to gain entry to the street, and they then attacked a gardener, rubble remover. Mr. Kluter in this case was so badly injured that when people got to the scene, they thought he'd passed away, and the person who actually tried to assist Mr. Kluter was attacked at the same time. So he had an amputation, and the damages that he got in that case is 2.3 million. But it just illustrates the point of you as the owner are completely blameworthy. You are not at home, somebody tries to get access to your premises, breaks your locks, opens your gates. What the court has said, the normal dog still would not attack. They might escape your premises. They would not attack. So it doesn't exonerate you. Fisser versus Fisser is also an interesting case. There funnily enough, is also the family Labrador, but there it is the son and his children who were visiting his father at the time, and that's why you have Fisser versus Fisser. And the family Labrador, the one little child wanted to be picked up, and I think he had his hands up, and when he put his hands down, I don't know if the dog saw that as a provocation. The dog in this case was Stoffel, and Stoffel bit the little child. And in this case, what this illustrates as well is this is a family member suing another family member. Now, they didn't stay together. Yes, it's permissible. Yes, it can be done, but it doesn't sit well, because you do realize in an insurance context that if there were not personal liability insurance, I can nearly promise you that the son would not have sued the father in this instance for the damage. But it is because there's that insurance contract, and because there were quite a bit of medical costs involved. Interestingly, the city of Cape Town and Carlse, that related to a seaside resort where there was a hole in the fence. Dogs were not allowed. If you went through the normal entry point, it said clearly their dogs are not allowed. But on instances, people through the hole in the fence brought dogs in. It seems that the security guys did ask the guys with the dogs to leave at times when this did happen, and if you didn't, the dogs would be impounded or you could get a fine. But in any event, it seems this still happened. The dog broke loose and attacked somebody in the swimming pool. In this particular instance, what's interesting is that there was negligence found on the city of Cape Town as well for not having patrolled this seaside resort and for having the fence open. And although it wasn't ultimately decided in the Supreme Court of Appeal, it was mooted that the city of Cape Town is therefore 50% liable, and then it leaves it open as to whether the controller of the dog, who let the dog go at the time, or whether the owner of the dog picks up the additional liability, and it may then be that there is an apportionment of liability. One additional case that I also wanted to highlight is the husband of this lady realized that somebody was being attacked in somebody's yard. I think it was a worker of the person at the time was being attacked. He came to that person's aid, and what the dog owner tried to say is that this person was trespassing and he got bitten, and it's not the owner's fault. And the court found no, he was definitely lawfully there. He was trying to assist somebody who was being attacked at the time of the dogs. His wife was on the outside watching this incident and was severely traumatized and claimed for emotional shock as a result of watching this attack. Again, they said no, but she can't claim for having watched and being subject to the attack, viewing the attack. And the court said no, she actually can claim for having viewed the attack and for suffering emotional shock and distress as a result. Van der Westhuizen versus Burger is just a funny case. I'm not going to go into all the details because I don't have time. But that's why I've got the picture of the ostrich. Is a person who was Mr. Berger said that the ostrich had chased him, a relatively tame ostrich. There was debate here on whether it's the Actiodocoperie or the Actiodophilus, which really relates to wild animals. But he said the ostrich was aggressive, the ostrich chased him, and as a result, and he fell, and when he fell, the ostrich attacked him, or wanted to attack him, and he then tore his Achilles tendon. But the evidence actually showed in the end, and what the court accepted, is that Berger had actually provoked the ostrich. He'd thrown a stone at the ostrich, and in previous instances at visiting the farm, he teased the ostriches. Whether it was this particular ostrich is a different story. But so he threw a stone, the ostrich started chasing him. He ran away, and at some point, the ostrich stopped chasing him. He just happily walked. And Berger fell, injured his Achilles tendon, and in getting up and running away again, that's when the injury happened. But the court said no. By the time you fell, the ostrich wasn't even chasing you any longer. But this illustrates the defense of provocation. Then just briefly, what does that mean going forward? It just means that liability, insurers have got to look at this and consider, do they want to change their approach to Fluffy and the implications? Because now we know it is most probably certain that liability will attach in these instances. The damages are high. As I say, they are sometimes fatal. They are amputations. Litigation risks are increasing in South Africa. People are becoming more litigious. Information is more readily available. And there's now liability for people in control of animals as well. That puts, a different spin on it. There might be a consideration of change of terms and conditions relating to breeds. There might be certain exclusions in terms of policies that might be considered, or, people being asked what kind of dogs do they have. There may be a requirement of disclaimer signs, warnings, possibly training. But I think from a broker perspective in advice to clients, it's important because these things are traumatic, and they are more prevalent. And a lot of dog owners, and as I say to you, I'm one, thinks their dogs can't do any wrong. In a few of these dog bite instances, which I was involved in as an attorney, we always insisted on going out and seeing the dog, because the dog owner would always tell you, and that was the same in Van Meijeren versus Klute, is these dogs were sleeping with the kids on the bed, and they were the most beautiful dogs in the world. And the moment you go out on an inspection in Loco and you see some of these dogs, when that back door opens and that slobbering dog runs at you like Turner and Hutch, trust me, you can see a mile away that this dog is not necessarily happy to see people outside of the family and will react in a certain way. So I think dog owners accept that their dogs are, act in a certain way, and they have an idea of what's acceptable in terms of animal behavior. But the way in which the courts judge it, not so much. Thank you. I hope that was insightful.
Thank you so much, Elsa, for that very informative presentation. I love the play on words there. Who let the dogs in? It's definitely not one that we hear about often enough, but hope all of the pet lovers and owners go Apologies about that. We seem to be having a little bit of a technical glitch. Bear with us while we get it fixed. Okay, and we are back. I was just saying that our next speaker is R. Michael Anderson. He is dialing in all the way from London. Michael is a best-selling author and a global speaker, and will be sharing some insights today with us about his new book, Leading in the Next Normal. So without any further ado, it is over to you, R. Michael Anderson.
All right. Well, hello everybody, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm joining you from London, but believe it or not, this isn't a Manchester accent. This isn't a Scottish accent. I'm actually American, and I married a lovely British woman, so I live over here in the UK. So I just want to give you some context to that. And it's been a very, very interesting time, obviously, for leaders around this time. I don't have to tell the people on this call that, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. And I just want to give you a little bit about my background, and I want to give you as much context as I can to help you as leaders and business owners, because Simon briefed me of who's out there and some of the challenges people are going through. And I'm going to give you, actually, I just came out with a book, actually, Leading in the Next Normal, and it's an international bestseller, because leaders have to deal with so many different things now than we did a year plus ago. And what it does is it talks about, both in this session and the book, talk about all the different challenges we have now dealing with this massive amount of change, how to handle virtual teams, how to get people motivated and inspired, and employee well-being. The fact is people are burnt out and such. And I just, before going into the details of that, and so as I go through this, jot down any notes, because what's going to happen is I'm going to just tell you a little bit about my background and my story. I'm going to give you the 12 principles that I laid out that help leaders through this. But then Simon and I are going to get together, and he's going to ask me your questions so that you can get your direct questions answered. Because as good as I talk about what I've seen with other leaders, I want to make sure that everybody here gets as much value as they can out of this. So who am I? So I started out actually in technology. I started out as a programmer. I then started 3 of my own companies. And I realized that after I started my own companies that, I'm smart and I'm driven and, I understand business well, but I wasn't a good leader. And I was still a good manager. But when it came to, when my company started scaling, I had one main company that really scaled quickly. And then all of a sudden, I was this programmer, this technical guy, and then all of a sudden I had a bunch of people, employees, that were looking to me for more. And I really didn't get leadership at that time. What I thought leadership was I would get in a whole bunch of tasks to do in projects. I would divvy out the tasks, and if people didn't get them done as fast or as well as I thought, then I would just get angry and frustrated at them. And obviously that wasn't a good way to go through things. And the larger we got, the more my deficiencies around leaderships got exposed, and it caused problems. It caused problems in the business. It caused problems for me professionally and monetarily. It caused issues emotionally, and it caused issues mentally, because that was such a difficult time for me. And I realized that I had to make a change, because all the things that made me a good technical person, I'm a little bit, believe it or not, I'm a bit introverted. I'm good at analyzing things. I'll outwork any problem. But all of a sudden I have these people, and now what I have to do is I have to motivate and inspire them. I have to be great at communication. I need emotional intelligence. It's not just about directing people. It's about getting people on board with who I am and what the company's doing and the purpose, and really developing a culture. And I sort of understood all those things intellectually, but I didn't understand exactly how to integrate and implement that. And so I realized, and there's a longer dramatic story about this that has to do with a business partner assaulting me, punching me in my own office, divorce, substance abuse, restraining orders, lawsuits. But we don't have time for that. If you want to get all that info, you got to wait for the Netflix special for that. But seriously, if you want to hear, I tell my story on my YouTube channel and things like that. But the point is that I realized that I had to grow as a leader, not as a manager, but as a leader. And for me to reach my goals and really to do justice to my employees and my customers, I said, look, I'm going to do whatever it takes to become that type of leader. And I took courses. I read so many books. I got coaches. I took courses. But what I also did is I actually signed up and earned a master's degree in spiritual psychology. And when I talk about spiritual psychology, it's nothing to do with religion. It's psychology. We learn 8 different psychoanalysis techniques just from a very compassionate and empathetic point of view. And the funny thing is, out of everything that I learned and my coaches and my teachers and everything else, when I started applying what I learned in that master's of psychology to my businesses, so to myself and to my leadership, then that's when we really started to take off. We were on the Inc. 5. This is when I had a couple software companies in California. We were on the Inc. 5000 list a couple of years in a row of fastest growing private companies. We were voted the #1 best place to work, which I'm really proud about. And I won Social Entrepreneur of the Year. That was externally, but internally, it's like I was finally having fun as a leader because I was growing something that was worthwhile. I was watching my employees grow as people. We were delivering great value to customers, and I was giving back to my community. And it was all easy. It didn't have to be hard because before I made these changes, I was just I looked cool and like I got it together on the outside, but on the inside, I would feel like a fraud. I would constantly be doubting myself. And so I realized that there's a lot better ways to go through this. And a lot of it has to do because I have the master's in psychology. I went on to get a neuroscience certificate because I really enjoy understanding what makes me tick and what makes other people tick. And so what happened then after I made these changes there were the changes in me and the changes in my organizations. A couple people I know, business owners in California, saw the changes in me personally and my business went through. They said, "Hey, Mike, what are you doing over there? Can you help us over here with my business?" And I found out I really enjoyed coaching and teaching and training other leaders and helping other businesses. And I looked at my life and I spent 22 years in accounting software. And I'm like, hey, maybe it's time for a change. And I know what you're thinking out there. You're like, accounting and software. Are there any, and especially when you mix them, are there any two subjects that are sexier in the world, especially when you mix accounting software? And you must have been like a rock star, Mike. That's what people say. I'm like, yeah, I was a bit of a rock star in that industry, but seriously, I love my accounting software days. But I'm like, hey, maybe it's time for something different. So I sold off 2 of my companies. I still own one of them. And what I really do is I teach the mindset of leadership around the world. Companies like Uber, Microsoft, Salesforce, they're all companies that bring me in to level up their leaders. And I got a couple best-selling books, et cetera. So that's a little bit about me and about my background. So I do mentoring, I do a little bit of coaching, advising, I'm on some boards, and I do a lot of training. Again, not about management, but about the psychology and the mindset that leaders need to scale their business, because really, I find that true leadership is a mind game. How do you really trust yourself? How do you have that inner resilience? How do you have that leadership presence that's authentic? Everybody talks about being authentic, but being authentic is a byproduct of really understanding and trusting yourself. So I do a lot of reflective type things and help people really bring out their best. And so, March 2020 came, and all of a sudden we're in lockdown and we're going through more change. I say in the first couple months of 2020 that a lot of leaders have been through more change than they have in the last 30 years. And it's not any change that we were ready for. And what I also realized is in my work life, as a leader, first of all, I worked for a North American-based company during 9/11. So I saw what a crisis did, the 9/11 terrorist attacks in 2001. I saw what happened to businesses and leaders when the terrorists hit, because it was especially in North America, and I know around the world, when those terrorist attacks happened, the planes came into the towers, business just stopped. I mean, with this pandemic, I think we had a little heads up that it was coming, and then business just stopped. So a lot of leaders had to really adjust quickly. Then I went through, I briefly mentioned a really crazy business lawsuit and things with a business partner. And I learned a lot about what leaders have to do and what businesses have to do through crises. So actually, when the Great Recession hit a couple years ago, and I owned 3 software companies, I knew what to do personally, and I knew what to do for my businesses, and we actually doubled in revenue and doubled in profit in the Great Recession. So I have a bit of a toolkit for leaders when you are dealing with difficult situations. And I've been working and leading remotely for over 20 years. I actually lived in Europe when for a technology company remotely for a North American-based software company. And when I had my companies, Well, the one was 2/3 remote, so we were in a hybrid environment, and that's the one that won the #1 best place to work. So I know a lot of leaders here are struggling with, oh my gosh, we're on Zoom all the time, we're on these video things all the time. My people seem burnt out. I don't know how to engage them. I don't have to know how to motivate them. I'm feeling a bit down myself. If that's you as a leader, then what we're going to talk about is really relevant. And that's what I put in my book, Leading in the Next Normal. And maybe somebody on there here that's running it can also drop in the chat the book link to get the book for anybody who doesn't have it. Because everything we talk about, I don't want you to worry about notes now, because everything we talk about is in the book. So I really just want everybody to be present. So again, start thinking about your questions, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my 12 principles that I share in the book. And then that's going to give you some context about what leaders need to do now. And then Simon and I will have that conversation to really get deeper into some of the things. So what I'm going to do is I am going to share my, and if you'll see there's a link for the book they put in the chat, as well as a high performance online team, virtual team course they'll talk about at the end. And then please do connect to me on LinkedIn. It's always great to be connected to other leaders. And I am going to share my thing. And if you can see the whiteboard okay. Well, it looks like I can't see the whiteboard okay. All right, let me just try to share the whole screen here. Zoom, don't fail me now, right? Meeting controls. Stop share. Give this another shot. Let's do it this way. All right. All right, just checking. Can you see the infographic? Yes, we can. All right, great. Now, excellent, everybody. Thank you. So, and here I'm just going to talk through this infographic a little bit. And it's just nice sometimes for me to. I'm a visual learner, so it's nice just to follow along with those things. Now, when it comes to where we are at as leaders in organizations, principle one is you can't sprint a marathon. And the reason I put this out here is I believe we went through 3 different phases in this through the pandemic. The first couple of weeks, I say, was like a street fight. As business owners, all of a sudden we're quarantined, we're working from home. It's like, business might be down. Nobody's really doing any business. Maybe you had to do layoffs or furloughs. And I say that was like a street fight. It was like a street fight because for 2, 3, 4 weeks, you as a business leader had to make massive decisions around cash flow, around people, around offices, etc., with very limited information. And probably you've never dealt with anything like that before. And you really had to make some quick, hard strikes quickly just to stay alive, just like in a street fight. So that was the first couple of weeks. And then it's like, okay, we got through that. We know we're going to survive, right? We know we're going to still be in business. And we had to make some of these difficult things. And make no mistake, that was difficult on so many leaders. I worked with a lot of leaders that I advise, and they're like, look, I've had to lay off 75% of my people. This has been the hardest last 48 hours of my life. So if you went through a difficult time, then you're not alone. That was crazy. And then the next phase was sort of like a sprint, because it's like, hey, now we figured out what we have to do to pivot. Hey, maybe we're working from home. We do calls this way. We're going to maybe change our product offering. And everybody did the pivot, smart pivots. But the thing is, when you pivot, it takes a lot of energy, and it's like a sprint. And remember, back in March 2020, we thought this was going to be over in June or July. We thought it was going to be over by summer. So we got our teams to sprint. And the thing is, teams were sprinting, but they were sprinting based on fear, because a lot of employees, they were scared about their job, they were scared about their company, they were scared about the industry, whether they would keep their job. There's all this crazy news. A lot of people, maybe they got COVID, or maybe one of their relatives got COVID. So there was just a lot of people were working a lot and really truly sprinting, using a lot of energy. But what happened is the pandemic went past July, right? We're really still in it in a lot of ways, and people are still sprinting. The problem is, when you sprint a marathon, you get really exhausted. And my team and I did a really in-depth study of the workforce at the end of last year, and people are exhausted. And I'll tell you, people are on a precipice of burnout, and this is worldwide. And I talked to Simon, checked in, and this is your industry too. And so that's principle one. We got to treat this like a marathon now. And so that means simplifying. That means taking care of our people. We'll go into that in a couple minutes. Principle two, leadership is personal now, and care about the person and their care. They will care about their job. And what that means is you as a leader, you got to bring out your best right now, because people need you. Your staff needs you. And it's very difficult because we're under more pressure than ever, but we also need to spend more time being leaders. And so I tell leaders, if you're used to spending 10 to 20 hours a week leading, working with your team, doing meetings with them, checking in, doing one-on-ones, you need to double that, because they need you. They need to see you're there. They need to have hope in you. They need to get more direction, especially through all these changes. You need to take care of your people. When I talk about leadership is personal now, I talk about there used to be a bit of a separation between boss and the employees' home lives. But now that people are working out of their homes, right, you really need to know their personal situations. I worked with one leader, and she was a country manager for Germany. And what happened is she had a 10-month-old baby at home, and her husband worked in oil and gas. And so he was in the apartment for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks he was out of the apartment. So this lady is trying to run a major country for this training thing. And 2 weeks out of every 4 weeks, she has to deal with a 10-month-old baby. And I'm like, how are you doing? She said, I have no idea. And so if her boss didn't know that, he's failing her or she's failing her, right? Because your boss, you as a boss need to know what people's home life is like if they are forced to work from home. And people's family will get COVID. Like a lot of people take care of elderly relatives, and if them or somebody from their family gets, they have to be a caretaker for them, or they get COVID themselves or whatever, you really have to know that. And the thing is, and that's what I mean about principle theory, care about the person and care about their job. This is the time where they need your empathy. They need you to care about them as people. And if you want to gain loyalty, and you want to gain the respect of your people for a long term, then you really got to make this extra effort to really get to know them, what's going on, to really show them that care, because that's going to get them on your side. And it's not just them. When other people in your organization are seeing that you're going to this next level, that's where they're going to really respond. Principle 4, earn the right to have real conversations, and you don't find out about mental health issues until it's too late. I told you people are struggling. 3 out of every 4 executives, directors, and managers, 3 out of every 4 are having mental health issues, and 1 out of every 4, it's serious. And so that means if you have an 8-person management team, 6 out of 8 of them are struggling, and 2 out of 8 of them are in a really difficult position. And so many leaders right now tell me, like, hey, I know I know my team's not doing well. I can feel it. I just when I ask them how they're doing, they're like, oh yeah, hey, it's okay. It's everything's fine. Everything's fine. So their intuition is telling them that their team needs help, but they don't know really how to get that information out of them and address them. And that's what I go through the book, and that's what I go through in the course. So if you're a leader there and you're like, hey, I know everything isn't right with my people. I know I should be making moves. I just don't know what they are. And I'm really feeling that this is going to get worse and worse unless I do something. Then look at the book and look at the course, which we'll talk about at the end. Because if somebody reaches burnout, I believe you failed them as a leader. Because if somebody reaches burnout, I mean, so many people I talk to are medicating themselves, whether it's alcohol, whether it's marijuana, whether people are having problems getting sleep. People are on sleep pills for the first time in their life. They're on anti-anxiety medication, food, everything else that they're using to manage this stress, which is not a great long-term solution, obviously. And when people do hit burnout, do hit this nervous breakdown, do all of a sudden call you up and say, hey, I'm in the hospital, or I need a couple weeks off. It takes weeks or months to get past pure burnout from your employees. And then look what happens to the rest of your team. Then they have to pick up the slack from them, and they know somebody else just burnt out, and they're like, well, what am I doing working here? What am I really doing? If people from the team are burning out, they're dropping off, I have to take up their workload, and the company really doesn't care about my well-being. I don't really know if this is the right place for me. I'm going to go to somewhere where it takes care of me. And Microsoft just put out a survey that said 41% of people are really struggling right now. and are looking for a new job because they're not sure that they're where they're working now is a great long-term place. So we really need to step up as leaders. Run tight meetings, period. Like I could talk for hours about virtual meetings, but I want to focus more on, because so much of our life revolves around virtual meetings. I want to keep going through these principles, and if it comes up with questions with Simon, we will. I just want to respect everybody's time. Same with empowered accountability leads to a strong culture. There's so much about accountability. There's so much about culture when leading remotely that you need to put into your organization. If you feel that the culture is slipping, if you feel people aren't motivated, you really need to, there's a lot of best practices that maybe you haven't been exposed to that you really need to be employing now to get your team back engaged, back accountable. Because everybody wants to do a good job. So if somebody is slipping, it's your job as a leader. So many people come to me and they're like, oh, my meetings are flat. And they're almost like saying that it's their employees' fault. If you're running the meeting, it's up to you to run a great meeting. And there's a lot of tools and techniques to do that. And if somebody is slipping in their performance or their motivation, that is your responsibility. That's not their responsibility. If you're the leader, that's your responsibility. So you really have to make sure you're upskilling yourself. You have the tools and you have the skills to serve your people and be that type of leaders. One of the things you can do, and this is a real simple one, is what happens is when people are used to being in an office or seeing their people face to face, and all of a sudden they're doing virtual or remote work, the managers are saying to me like, I just don't know what they're doing all day. I'm sure they're busy because I get emails all different times, but I want to know what they're doing every day. And they don't ever say this to your employee. Hey, every day when you're done, I want you to send a list of everything you did yesterday, because these managers, they really want to control everything. And because you're not in the office, it's like, oh, I don't know what they're doing. And it's like you have this thing like, are they working? Are they working hard? Are they just sitting at home on the sofa watching Netflix? Are they slacking off? That type of micromanagement is really going to turn people off. And really, that's the exact opposite thing you want to do. A lot of people know that management and leadership is about empowering people and having them reach goals. Now, what you want to do, and this is up for you, up to bring you to level yourself up as a manager and leader, or to really get clear about what you expect out of people as far as outcomes and results, and make sure they're clear in that, and then have them go do that, empower them and trust them to do that. If they get that done in 6 hours a day, who cares? What do you really care? But chances are they're not. Chances are actually the statistics show people are working more now, because there's not that separation between work and the office and things. And when you start getting like nosy and not trusting them, what did you do yesterday? And can you send me a list of everything you did? They're like, well, I just worked 10 hours for you. I really don't want to make a list. I really don't like that. And so you have to realize that it's up to you to empower them. That doesn't mean you don't have check-ins. That doesn't mean you don't have rules and boundaries and things, but I just really want you to reflect on your behavior around that. Because on principle number 10 and principle number 11, there's so much negativity out there. People are struggling. People are locked down. I heard in South Africa, I think you guys even had alcohol restrictions where you couldn't even buy alcohol. And, anyway, people are just really struggling with how to get through that. And a lot of people are using work. And this is a great way you can be of service to, and I talk of being of service because I really believe great leaders are of service. That's why we talk about servant leadership, are in service to both their customers and their employees, and really there to make sure that the way I think of it is I'm there to make sure my employees have everything that they can do to serve the customer. And I had one boss, and I always remember this because, but at the end of the day, your employees are the one nose to nose with the customer, not necessarily you, especially in a larger organization. And if they're nose to nose with the customer, it's my job to make sure that they have all the training and be empowered and have everything that they need to do an amazing job. And he said to me, he goes, and I'll never forget this, Mike, I just make sure my employees are empowered and engaged, and then they worry about the customer. I don't even worry about the customer. I just worry about my employees. I'm like, man, that's always stuck with me. But back to all this craziness, the fact is we got to deal with so much negativity and people out there about the news, about vaccines, about this, about that. they're using work can really be a way to bring some positivity into people's lives because there's a sense of meaning and a purpose. And if you show up and you start to show up with that negative energy and you start to doubt yourself and you start to doubt your if you are going through a low point, because I'll tell you, for me and everybody else, it's been more a roller coaster, and that's okay. You're human. You're going to go through that. But if you're on the down, if you're feeling a little bit depressed, don't address your team. Reschedule things, because the one time you show up and you don't believe in your company or yourself, they're going to sense that energy and they're going to lose hope and lose faith. Just think about it. If one of your leaders, whether it's through a company or it's through, you know, a politician, the one time that they show up and they're like, oh, this is tough, I don't know how we're going to get through this, everybody pounces on them. And it's almost not fair, because as a leader, I'm not saying don't be authentic. You got to be authentic and you got to be honest, but you got to be like, hey, look, we're going to get through this. We're going to be strong. Here's what we're going to do. You want to be absolutely authentic and truthful about where you're at now. But then you're like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make it. We're going to get together. They just want to know that there's hope. And so you've always got to bring that positive type hope, because, you know, at the end of the day, your culture, your agility, and your people are your long-term competitive advantages. We used to think it was you know, intellectual property or market share. Well, you know, what this pandemic, the last 12, 13 months have shown us, it's your people and it's your culture, because the people that are winning now are the people that could quickly quickly adapt to that. So, all right, I feel like I've been talking and talking and talking. Son, are you there? We're going to do a little back and forth, I believe. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right, Michael. I'm not sure if my camera is going to come on here, but oh, there we go. So firstly, yeah, welcome to virtual South Africa. Hopefully we can get you here when we can all start moving around again. It's still quite difficult for South Africans to leave the country. I've heard of people having to go via Kenya just so that they can get into the UK without staying in a Hilton hotel at Heathrow. So, but thanks for your talk, and to all the viewers, everyone that tuned in. It's great to see you again. It's been a while since I've been on InsureTalk. I actually, before I get into the questions, I came across Michael's book because as a leader in our business, I was kind of feeling, you know, it was easy. Well, I'm not going to say easy, but it was easy to go into lockdown and to start remote working when we didn't have a choice. You know, we were kind of, like you said, the street fight. You know, you're in it and you just got to start throwing punches, or you could run away, I guess. But if you're in a corner, you've got to you actually have to engage with this thing. So we didn't have an option. We had to keep going. And that was almost easier than where we're finding ourselves now, because now we have to make a choice. We know that the lockdown restrictions are easing in most countries, and we so for me as a leader, I was kind of going, well, what do we do next? You know, do we kind of go back to the way we were? And so I remember Googling. You know, I don't think I typed in leading in the next normal, but I came across your book and I downloaded it, read it, bought it for my team. And those 12 principles have really sort of made a difference. So when you agreed to come on to InsureTalk, I thought, and I must tell you, Michael, I've got my team watching your website now, and lots of people from Joburg are downloading your book at the moment. So I think what you're saying is actually resonating. There's a little ticker thing that pops up every time somebody downloads it. So yeah, the kind of the sort of things that have jumped out for me. So now we're kind of going, do we carry on working from home, or do we go back to the office? So we kind of, you mentioned in your talk now, you said leaders are burnt out, our teams are burnt out, and I think that, you know, one of the things that I felt myself doing is kind of going, okay, my guys are burning out. I need to get them back into the office. Is that the right reaction? Or do you think we'd be kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a funny thing, Simon. And almost everybody I talk to are going to make changes. I mean, almost because there are benefits to working at home. No commute, connected with your family. In a way, you're more productive sometimes, and so. To me, there's like working from home all the time and working from the office. And I think there's a sweet spot in there for 95% of companies that's some sort of hybrid. And because it's really hard, I think, nowadays to do too much either way. Because when you do have a virtual team, you can hire much better talent because you're not geographically, you don't have the geographic issues. You have people with different life situations, et cetera. And then also when you're virtual, you have to spend a lot of time getting around the no FaceTime type thing, which you can do, but it's very intentional and it takes a lot of effort to do that. So, and all the studies have said is people like working from home. They really have now that they got a taste of it, because a lot of people obviously were forced to do it. Pretty much everybody is forced to do it, when traditionally we said we couldn't do it, or it wouldn't work for our company, or it wouldn't. It's like, oh yeah, it will work for us. And so people want, and I'm going to use the word hybrid, there's going to be a lot of hybrid solutions. And the thing is, I'm not even sure we can, because we don't know if there's going to be more lockdowns. We don't know if there's going to be more whatever there is. So I don't even think it's time for that long-term strategy. But I think it's time for the medium-term strategies, say over the next 3 months, over the next 6 months, because people want to get their head around things, and we have to be more creative. So I know this isn't super specific, but I think a lot of people are going to land in the middle. And I think even if people go very virtual and say a lot of people can work it from home, I think that's going to actually lend itself to more like team building exercises. Because if I do have a fully virtual team, say they're all in the same country, I do want to get them together at least every quarter to spend a day together, just gaining that trust, just seeing them. So I do, and again, I think that's where the creativity comes in, where you got to work, you got to almost figure out what's going to work for you, your workforce. What do they want? What are they requiring? There's technical challenges, et cetera, if you have a call center, et cetera, and then work backwards from that, because we can always find solutions. But I just encourage everybody that if you are somebody that always worked at an office and all of a sudden you're fully virtual because of lockdown or whatever, and you really want to get back to the office, yeah, you can get back to the office. Just realize that there may be a sweet spot in there just to really open up your thinking, to really see what's going to work for everybody.
Yeah, thanks. And I think on that note, it working for everybody. One of the things you talk about in your book is that distinction. You mentioned specifically introverts and extroverts. Getting to know who they are. I think a lot of people don't really understand the definitions properly. But knowing who they are and then kind of figuring out how the virtual thing might be working or not working for them. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, absolutely, Simon. That's a great thing to bring up, because it's something very something everybody can use right away. And when I talk about this, people are probably going to go, "Oh yeah, I sort of know that, but let's take it to the next level and really make sure everybody's implementing it." And really quick, Simon, how long are we going to go? Because I can do long answers or short answers. How much more time do we have again?
I think we've got a good sort of 20 minutes left, so we're good.
So a lot of people know, but I'm just going to go over the definitions. You have extroverts, which love being around people, love talking, love crowds. And the actual definition of an extrovert are people that get energized by being around people. And when they're alone too much, they get that drains their energy. And then you have introverts who really love being alone. They love reading, maybe they love writing, those type of things. Sometimes they're very analytical, and they recharge by being alone, and being around a lot of people draws their energy. So, and funny thing is, a lot of professional speakers are a bit introverted. So it's not even how do they think, it's how do they gain their energy. Most everybody is in the middle. There's not many pure extroverts or introverts, but normally people are on the middle. And so, but it's where are they at on there? And a lot of salespeople, for example, are extroverted. Now, when it comes to working from home or working virtually, the extroverts, the farther people are on the extrovert scale, the more difficult this has been for them because they miss that camaraderie of the office. And what you want to do with extroverts is recognize your extroverts and make sure that they have an outlet for their talking, their energy. You know, especially if they're used to chatting a lot, and that might be as simple as maybe doing a daily coffee for half an hour or an hour, just for anybody who wants to pop in to just chat about things. Or you might make sure that everybody has a buddy that they check in with, especially on the extroverted side, once a day, just to chat with people, because that will really affect their mental health. Introverts, on the other hand, they're really thriving working from home because they're getting all their stuff done. They're like, nobody's there to bug me because I'm at the office, everybody talks to me, and I'm a bit introverted, a little bit introverted, and so I get this. And it's funny because my wife is extroverted, so she doesn't have anybody to talk to, so she'll start talking to me, and it's like, we're trying to figure each other out here. So you really, the people in your household, even this even affects people in your household. And so, but introverts, though, oftentimes they'll get forgotten about. And so you as a leader, you might have this introvert and you're like, hey, Simon's getting all this stuff done. He's amazing. But then I don't talk to him for 3 weeks. And then I find, I'm getting emails at weird times from him. Because what you need to do is you need to make sure you're checking in with those introverts. You need to be having one-on-ones with your meeting, with your team, probably every 2 weeks. And this can be a 10-minute check-in. Hey, Simon, how you doing, man? How's things? Listen to him. Again, I go through in the course, I go through how to spot mental health issues proactively, and because you really want to have your antennas up for these to get them, because the quicker you get them, the quicker you can address them. So the introverts, you don't want them to be forgotten about, and you want to make sure you're supporting them. And there's different ways to do that. The extroverts, you want to make sure there's an outlet for their energy, and again, extroverts love talking to other extroverts. So you can literally tell two extroverts just talk to each other at 10 a.m. every day, and just to burn off that extra energy.
Yeah, bring in the extroverts.
Yeah, I'm gonna go hide personally. You guys talk.
That's all good. Yeah. So on that note, Michael, we got a question here from Cliff in the audience, and he says, how do you get to know more about the personal life of your employees or your team without appearing to be nosy? And I guess, when you've got a bigger team, you may not have had personal relationships with everybody before lockdown, and you quite possibly don't have, technology that you can rely on to measure productivity. So, to try and, balance, not putting people under pressure, not making them feel like they're being micromanaged, but at the same time, feeling like you've got some control over your business still. Any suggestions around that?
Yeah, great question, Simon. And for everybody, this comes up a lot because, first of all, trust your intuition. If your intuition is telling you something's going on with them that's not, you can tell they're falling off a little bit, that's probably accurate. And you really need to be setting up these one-on-ones. And that's what's great about these consistent one-on-ones. And in these one-on-ones, you really have to listen and show empathy and really give them this safe place to share. And again, in the course, I have literally a step-by-step outline of how to run these one-on-ones, because there's a lot of psychology to this. How do you create a safe space? How do you get them talking? How do you share vulnerably? Because sometimes one tactic is for you to share something about yourself. And there's ways to ask these questions out of like a curiosity instead of in a really supportive way, because and even asking these questions are going to let them know that you care about them. Because, I have one, this guy was a managing director, and he's really busting his butt to do everything for his employees. I said, well, how are you doing? He's like, well, actually, I'm leaving. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I was going through a tough time. And then I went to the owner, and the owner could tell I was going through a tough time. And then, because finally I told him, look, I'm taking 2 weeks off. I need to recharge, or a week off. I need to recharge. The owner said, okay, yeah, you can do that. And the MD said, when he came back, the owner didn't even ask me how I'm doing. And he's like, all I wanted him to do was just show some care. Just say, hey, you feeling better, man? I know you were going through a tough time. I appreciate that. That was all the guy was looking for. That's all the guy was looking for. He didn't get any of that. It was all about making money for the owner. He's like, look, I'm not going to deal with this. I do a good job. I'm going to go do a good job for somebody that cares. And so there's a lot about empathy. And I give a story in the book about, I don't want to get too far into that, but that's what I mean. Care about the person, have real conversations, share some real things about you. But when you share about you, this is sort of what I talked about before, that you have to be vulnerable in the correct way, because being vulnerable, there's so much to vulnerability and authenticity in leadership. Being vulnerable doesn't mean puking all your problems over your team, because then they're going to get freaked out. Being vulnerable means, hey, yesterday I went through a bit of a tough time, so I took a half day off. Because when you say that, then you tell them it's okay for them to not be perfect all the time. It's okay for them to take a mental half day off, right? Because they're just, they're burnt out or whatever. But you don't ever want to be in that downtime again when you talk to them, because that energy transfers. So your authenticity, you can talk about something that happened, but you don't ever want to show up with that energy. But though by talking about it, you make it okay for them, because they're going to mirror what you do and what you say. And so that really is important.
Thank you. Another question here, cameras on or off?
So it's interesting. I was always like a camera on guy. And then I read a post, and people talked about a couple things. One is, look, if it's a tight-knit group, like if we're in a management meeting and it's me and 4 or 5 people, we're doing a half an hour to an hour, maybe even 2 hours, but it's like really important stuff. Cameras on. Look, we're in a management team. You need to put your camera on if you're in my management team. If it's 20 people, if it's 30 people, if it's a weekly meeting where people are only need to be engaged part of it, because look, we do weekly status, maybe project teams where I got 4 different projects going on and people are in different teams. Keep your cams off. Drink your coffee, go to the bathroom, make a bagel, whatever it is, just be present when you're present. And also culturally, it's different. I realize that some cultures are, American, it's like, hey, put us in front of a camera, no problem. A lot of us, but some people, are shy, they don't like the camera. So don't get too caught up in this camera on, camera off, because it's more about your insecurity, honestly, as the presenter, because and I get it. Trust me, I love presenting to live groups, and I'm looking at my camera. I'm trying to look at Simon out of this thing. I'm looking at the camera, trying to keep my energy up. And even when Simon smiles and stuff, I get that. But I understand that you want that real time feedback. But at the end of the day, it's forcing people to put their cameras on are going to be, it's a little bit annoying, because they're like, look, I just want to sit back, and if I'm not in frame, or my cat comes in, or my kid's having an issue, I really don't want that on camera, because that's a lot of what we're dealing with. So it's a bit situational, but give people a little more of a break. And if you do need that feedback, talk to 2 or 3 of your close friends in the group and say, hey, do me a favor, keep your camera on and just give me some thumbs up or some things. And what I do, I teach these 2-hour-long leadership masterminds, and every so often I'll say, hey, does this make sense? Give me a thumbs up if you're with me. And it's just nice for me to get that thing that they can still hear me, that I'm still on the right track, because we don't know. And look, it's hard doing meetings with these cameras, but again, it's just a way for you to really up your game.
Yeah, no, that's valid. I mean, try doing comedy on virtual, it's just little crickets chirping in the background. But I think one of the questions that came up in our business, and I see somebody just asked something connected to that on the group. It's about culture, and you do deal with it in your book. Culture and being able to create sort of deep connections in this virtual space. So now we do have, as you mentioned, we've got the option to have get-togethers. People can go back to the office if they feel safe enough to do that. But if we are working almost completely online, how do you still create those deep connections with people? What do those one-on-ones look like? How do you make sure the company culture is still kind of flowing when people aren't kind of getting back together?
Yeah, I get that. I get that. To me, there's 2 things I'm going to answer here. One is, how do you do the deep connections? And second is culture. The first about connections, it's like, now that we're virtual, we have to be intentional about everything that happened by accident, because no matter what happens, Simon and I are not going to meet at the coffee, at the coffee thing or go to lunch when we're working virtual. So you have to allow for that. And what that might look like is, excuse me, every Friday, I have a different, I have a half an hour virtual coffee with some random person in the organization, or from, if I'm in sales, it's maybe with somebody in marketing or finance or whatever it is, so that we can have those water cooler conversations, and they work out surprisingly well. You just have to put those in people's calendar or make a way for those to happen. And you know what? I was in London before that. I was in San Diego, near Los Angeles. So everybody would want to meet for a coffee. I'm like, well, if I meet you for a coffee, that's a 4-hour freaking thing. It's not like meeting for a coffee is easy. So I'm like, let's do a virtual coffee. And people are like, oh, I need face-to-face. But the fact is, I like virtual coffees better. I like 25-minute virtual coffees better than meeting in person, because to be honest, half the people I don't really like that much. No, I'm just joking. But I'm not like committed to like an hour coffee, because it seems like when you meet for a coffee, you're always committed to a 45-minute conversation. It always starts out here. How's the weather? How's your van? When you have a 25-minute virtual coffee, it's literally half an hour out of your day. You get right to the stuff more quicker. There's less fluff. I do care a little if you have kids or not, but what I more care is if we can do business together. And that's not a problem. People are like, oh, I like these relationships. I like relationships with people I can do business with. So let's find out if we're a match business-wise, and then work outwards from there. Let's work on the connection first.
Good. Michael, when we chatted last week for the first time, and you said something really interesting to me, and I'll just bring everyone into the picture here. What I said to Michael when we chatted was, we had just had a meeting at our office, and we were really going through some of the more creative things in the business, looking at our purpose statement, why are we here? Those are the kind of questions, dealing with some of the marketing things and leadership generally. And we got together for that meeting. I flew up to Johannesburg, and we had a face-to-face, and it felt like we were able to kind of create something. Took the whole day. Then I mentioned this to you, and you said to me, you don't believe that people can be creative in a group like that. And in fact, when you do things virtually, there might even be a better way of coming up with creative things, marketing ideas, purpose statements, whatever it is. Do you remember that conversation and what you said to me?
Yes, Simon, this is a cool thing to bring up. And let me give everybody context before everybody says you don't believe in collaboration, because collaboration is amazing in certain areas, but they found, Harvard did some great studies that when it comes to creativity, when you're in a group, that stifles creativity. And so creativity, because I'll tell you what, say Michelangelo, when he was going to paint the Sistine Chapel, he got his 5 buddies together. He's like, I want to do this, one person pointing to this other person. They're like, that's not going to look good. Maybe we should just do something standard. Or, when Steve Jobs had the idea for the iPod, like, we're going to make a Walkman, but we're going to put more things on it, and everybody's more songs, everybody. That's stupid, right? They say back when you had horse-drawn carriages, if you asked people what they wanted, nobody would say a car. They would say better horse-drawn carriages. So when it comes to being really, truly creative and looking for something out of the box, when you have more people in it, people play it safe, because true creativity, genius creativity, comes from one person's vision. And so collaboration works great when you got to make sure that, like, finance and sales got to work together. You want to collaborate on that action plan. You definitely want divisions and people from different areas to collaborate, for sure. And that's, people work too siloed, absolutely. But when it comes to being innovative, here's the one thing I gave to Simon that I think makes a lot of sense. If I was having a thing like, hey, we need a new product, or we need a new tagline for this, the worst thing to do is get everybody together, because then we get the most boring things, because nobody wants to take a chance. So what I'm going to say is, to me and to Simon and to everybody else, I want you to think of your 3 best taglines. I want you to bring them to the meeting, and then we're all going to throw them on a board. And what that's going to do is everybody's individual creativity and risk-taking is going to be at play. And then you get all of them. And then you got to be careful not to talk yourself out of something a bit gutsy. And that way you get the best of both worlds, because obviously you don't want to just leave it to somebody and hope it works. You do want more people in it. but that's a really good way to get people creative. That's what we were talking about, right, Simon?
Yeah, that is, and I mean, I think we're going to try this in our business. I'm not 100% convinced that it'll work, but I think it's certainly worth a shot. The other thing that's come up in the chats is, virtual doesn't seem to work that well for onboarding, especially new people in the business. But if you're a broker and you're in sales, doing a virtual meeting the first time you meet someone or the first time they get brought into the business, there's a bit of, does that work? Am I on the same footing that I was on before the pandemic? What do you think about that? I think, sorry, Michael, before you answer, with the employees, one of the things that people have been saying, you learn a lot from eavesdropping when you're in an open plan office, and you obviously don't get that in virtual. So yeah, sorry to interrupt. Back to you.
Well, let's handle all these, because again, you brought up a couple of things. One, learning from other people, eavesdropping. Two is onboarding. The third is culture. And again, each one of these things that happen by accident in the office, you have to be intentional about. And I make the case, when you're intentional about them, you do them better, but you just have to put effort into them. So let's talk about eavesdropping. And this is something we chatted about. So, if I'm a junior programmer, I hang out with the senior programmers, I hear them solving each other's issues, then I learn from what they're doing. Well, why don't, like, once every 2 weeks, you have a best practices session where for an hour, all the junior programmers join a senior programmer. He talks about something that he did, or she talks about something she did, and everybody else can learn from what she did. And you do the mentoring sessions that way. And you're getting the exact same, not the exact same thing, but you're making it intentional. And so that's, for example, you're eavesdropping, or what a lot of people have done, have set up mentors. So, Simon's my mentor, so we're supposed to talk half an hour every week. That works really well, so that I have somebody to go to, or he can check over something, et cetera, on that. So that's one quick thing. And that's not even being intentional, putting in a system around anything that we want to do. Onboarding. So most people are not great on onboarding anyway, but it's more important virtually. And the fact is, you really should, again, create times and create spaces for people to connect with other people in the organization. So if I'm new, Simon should have like my first 3 days planned out. I should spend, and we talk about culture, I talk to people that are like, well, what is your culture? Well, sort of this and sort of that. Well, if you haven't defined your culture, how can people adapt to your culture? And so when you do your meetings, what do you do for culture in every meeting? Oh, we really don't do anything. Well, you got some work to do. So when it comes to onboarding, you really have to plan out, hey, if it's important for me to create a connection with Simon, then we should have a half an hour conversation every 2 days for 2 weeks. And again, I'm a big believer in the short, frequent conversations or meetings. I like 10-minute check-ins. I like 15-minute check-ins once every 3 days, rather than a 2-hour meeting or 1-hour meeting once a week or once every 2 weeks, because it keeps things fresh, and it keeps the way the brain works, and the way neuroscience works is, we do small things over a frequent period of time, or how relationships are done, or how our brain rewires. So, get out of these 1 or 2 hour meetings, get into these things. Hey, Simon, let's catch up every, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8:45. Let's just do a check-in. That would really help me. And then we can be on the same page. Cool, Mike, I can do 15 minutes, no problem. So those type of things for check-in. And culture, you got to define your culture. When we defining my culture was a huge step in my organization. And that went into the job ads I wrote. Once I got clear about my culture, my vision, and my purpose, that went into every job ad I wrote. That went into every conversation with a prospective employee, into every job interview. That went into who we pick. That went into how they get compensated. That went into how we do our employee reviews. That went into every time we had any meeting, we started off with something with culture. And that was in person or virtually. So if you want to have a strong culture, you got to get clear about what that culture is. And then it should be in your DNA. And again, great companies do that. And companies that didn't do that could sort of slide by with that before. But now that we're virtual, it's like, that's what I mean. You got to bring your A game, and you got to really look at everything you do. But when you do, it's amazing, because people talk about accountability and motivation. When you have your culture rocking and rolling, that takes care of itself. people hold themselves accountable because they believe so much in the organization.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I want to have one final question, and it's really just your thoughts on this, and then we literally have sort of 2 or 3 minutes. What would you say to this? The world of work, well, let's look at it this way. Most leadership positions in South Africa, and I think in many countries, are held by men. Okay, that's a fact in most countries, including our own, in our industry particularly. The world of work was designed by men for men. We don't have to go and have babies. We don't often have the family responsibilities on our shoulders. So when the pandemic came along and the subsequent lockdowns and the work from home, some people call this the great equalizer, because now, nobody's really prejudiced by this thing where you've got to kind of get in your car and go to another place and ask for time off. And I think that a lot of the voices that are saying the work from home works for us might be coming from people that are going, look, I didn't feel that I was in a workplace that kind of embraced who I was before. And now it does. So I mean, what do you say to that? Are you seeing that kind of conversation happening around us and people going, we mustn't lose the ground we've gained as we move through this?
Yeah, that's we could have a whole day on that, Simon, and you're exactly right. And I even catch myself, if people are really astute, even sometimes I gave examples, I said he instead of she, and I corrected myself through this presentation. So I have subconscious bias, and I'm really working hard to get over. And women have it difficult because of, and you can talk about this on the gender, on the race level, and all different levels. And it's good we're having these conversations. Unfortunately, yes, it has leveled the playing field somewhat, but also people that oftentimes, for example, now that if the schools weren't open, often that burden goes to the woman instead of the man. Oftentimes, people that may not that might not have as much money are hurt for work from home because they don't have the internet, or they might not have a laptop. So we're seeing this socioeconomically. We're seeing this on the gender. There's not a lot of good, easy fixes for this, especially from South Africa. And I think we really got to be aware as leaders. And again, to me, great leadership takes true honesty with yourself about what you can do about these issues. And I've really caught myself looking at my subconscious biases and really saying, I want to be a leader that empowers everybody. And so that I've made some choices around what I do and in different groups that I help, because I'm, to be honest, being born an American and in the place that I was, and given the advantages that I had where I grew up and how I grew up and how I was born, a lot of people don't have that. And so as leaders, to make this place a better place, we really have to do everything we can. I know that might sound a little bit broad, but that's really what I believe. And that's what I do personally. And I just encourage everybody out there just to really, really look deeper within themselves and see their behaviors, their actions, what they say, and how they can be the best leader they can, which takes courage.
R. Michael Anderson. What does the R stand for?
That stands for Robert, and that because really quickly, I'll tell you one really quick story. I was speaking in New Orleans, and I went by Michael Anderson, and as I was registering, the guy goes, "Are you Michael Anderson?" I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "Are you a serial killer?" I'm like, "I don't think so. Why do you ask that?" And he goes, well, I Googled, he was joking. He's like, "I Googled Michael Anderson and you're a serial killer in New Orleans, I guess." And so I thought I was pretty, hot stuff at that time. So I went home and I anonymously Googled myself, and Michael and Anderson are the most common first name and last name the year I was born. So there's a ton of Michael Anderson. So my first name is Robert. Okay. So I add the R in front of that, R Michael Anderson. So I'm Googleable. But one last thing, Simon, because I did work with you and your organization. I do have a high performing virtual team online course, and I'm giving everybody half off until
thank you.
Yeah, noon tomorrow, UK time. So if anybody out there really is saying, "Hey, I want to be the best leader I can for my organization. I want to learn how to run virtual meetings. I want to learn how to get this culture thing. I want to learn it to the next step. It's only $247. It's over half off of what I normally do it for. There's 5 modules that go through, again, accountability, virtual meetings, etc. I just wanted to put it out there for everybody. I also have an online group. You'll get invited to it after you buy the book, that I answer questions there directly. So if you want direct access to me, that's a great way to do it. So, and again, Simon, thanks for having me on here. Again, my last thing is, look, as leaders, we have to deal with so much pressure. And it's almost unfair because we're getting all these different ways, and oftentimes there's no one there to support us. And if my goal is anything, is to be a bit of support for leaders, to say, hey, look, it's difficult. It's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to get things wrong. Have some of that compassion for yourself, because look how much good that you do. Sometimes we focus on all the problems, the things we didn't do perfectly, but I can almost guarantee that everybody on this call does so much for their customers and their employees, and to just give themselves a little bit of a break, especially over these last 13 months, and just to make things a little easier on your own internal life.
Wow, that was brilliant. Michael, it's been great chatting to you. I wish I could give you a virtual high five. Yeah, we can do that. So yeah, all the best and thank you. And I'm sure we'll be chatting soon. I definitely have some things we'd like to try here in South Africa. So I appreciate your time. And yeah, thank you. And please, if you want to do yourself a favor, if you're watching this, get Leading in the Next Normal. It's a brilliant book. It's only $7, I think. And it's really worth making that investment. So thank you, Michael. And yeah, over to you, Noni.
Thank you so much, Michael Anderson, and to you, Simon, for that very engaging interview. I think we were all listening very closely, and it would really be great if we had more of these conversations. I know a lot of organizations are now unpacking this very issue, so thank you so much. If you are sitting at home and you enjoyed that discussion and would like to learn more and unpack some of those issues some more, you can go right here, right now, to download your copy. You to make scan it right now and download it for yourself. Thank you once again, Michael Anderson, for that. Really enjoyed the insights. We're almost at the end of our session now. As always, we like to get your launch a very quick poll right now. It's being launched and you should see it on your screen at this moment. So please take a few seconds to just give us a feedback. We'd like to run the poll shortly. All right then, as you know, today is our first birthday. We've been saying this throughout. The celebrations do continue, and you'll recall that earlier on in the entertainment segment, we played some videos of all of you wishing us a happy first birthday. Of course, you know that there is a 5,000 Rand prize, and that 5 winners will be called out. So I'm going to use this opportunity to do that right now. So the winners are, drumroll, Nolene Hansen, yay! We've got Shazia Akub, Cindy Kernerkamp, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Please forgive me. Luvani Isele and Lunga Nchara. Congratulations. You win your share of 5,000 Rand. All right, so we have reached the end of our session now. A huge thank you once again to our event partners. Santam was, of course, our headline partner today, and our other event partners included CIB, a cover magazine was our media partner, as well as the IISA. A huge thank you once again to all of our speakers for sharing your valuable insights here with us. Thank you so much. And of course, last but certainly not least, all of the attendees at home, thank you for your continued support of InsureTalk. We look forward to celebrating many more birthdays with you. And lastly, before I go, and as usual, I'm going to leave you with a short quote that is in line with our theme today. It reads, it's by Charles Darwin. It reads, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change." And that is by Charles Darwin. I hope that you've enjoyed this session, our first birthday. We look forward to celebrating more of these. From myself, Nontutsugo Mhlungu, and the CN&CO team, it's been an absolute pleasure. Have a lovely afternoon, stay safe, and see you at InsureTalk 12.